Hello everyone, this is the September 2019 Patron AMA stream, and guys, I miss you. It just sounds like a stupid, like, YouTuber cliche bullshit thing to say, but it's true. I miss you guys. What a stupid month this has been. Got my iced coffee. I got a much better shade of lipstick this time, so feeling good. Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? Let's get to the questions. Let's see here. Someone says lipstick colors are on fleek. Thank you. Are we still saying on fleek? Filming in. Is on fleek still a thing we're saying? I just found out that there's an app called Visco with an associated stereotype called Visco Girl, and I'm obsessed with Visco girls. That's where I'm at as a 30-year-old biological female. I kind of like On Fleek. Also, there is a salon I think in Baltimore that just opened called On Fleek, so they're really, they're like really leaning into the the idea that On Fleek is here to stay. So I'm rooting for them. I'll keep saying On Fleek just to help them out, if for no other reason. Thanks. So someone likes my nails. I asked the manicurist for shade Blair White. All right, no more banter. We got. Lauren Benasuti says, "Do you think it's possible to reverse or at least stop the effects of climate change under a capitalist economy, or do we need another system such as an economic democracy?" Wow. Let's like start Ralph right at the beginning with solving all the world's problems. Yeah, I think I don't know. It's hard for me to answer that question because what I feel in my gut is that we're doomed. You know what I mean? Like I feel like no, honestly, capitalism is not going to stop climate change, but I also don't really see us being able to stop. I don't really see us being able to stop capitalism. So my prediction is that we are indeed fucked. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's too bad. I don't know. I just don't see these fuckers like actually doing anything in time, you know? Like I just look at the people who are in charge and like the way they react to things, and like I feel like by the time they start really taking it seriously, like it's gonna be too late, you know? Because the doom is already going to be here. You know what I mean? Like the doom will be upon us before it becomes like politically expedient for these jackals to do anything about it. And like that's the thing about global warming, right? Is that it's like it works on a time frame like that's just out of reach of like what capitalism can deal with, right? Because it's like it requires like short-term inconvenience for long-term survival of the species, but we just sort of can't. It's not fast enough to adapt to a thing that's not an immediate like market need, you know what I mean? A market demand. So it was a good run. Yeah, I had a good time. I hope you guys had a good time. Roll credits on Earth, on the planet. I guess roll credits on humanity, really. The planet's gonna be fine. Winston Chan says, "I'm unsure if this has been asked already, but what are your favorite and accessible philosophy books?" Well, I feel like I'm glad I got asked about books, because I feel like I usually in this stream say like I don't read anymore, but the video I'm working on right now is probably like my most researched book. I mean, wow, my most researched video ever. I read so many fucking books and articles, and so yeah. Are any of them really philosophy books? Well, I read some of Kant's critique of judgment for this, but that's not, it's one of the least accessible books ever written, so I would not suggest that. um, Someone in the chat says, yeah, John Berger, Ways of Seeing. Yeah, Ways of Seeing is a good book that is about culture and philosophy and art. It has lots of pictures, very accessible. So I definitely suggest that one. It's just also very like a kind of profound introduction to like Marxist like cultural critique and all that. But I mean, it depends what kind of philosophy you're interested in. Like these days, I'm like the philosophy I'm mostly interested in is like the philosophy that's sort of on the edge of like cultural criticism, or social criticism, social commentary even. I don't know. So I'm gonna drop a lot of other book suggestions in this next video, so if any of those sound interesting, check them out. Edward says, is it worth trying to talk to some of my veterans peers about becoming Reds? Being bullied kind of sucks. How do you deal with it? Sorry I can't give you more money. That's okay, Edward. Well, I wouldn't frame it as talking to them about becoming Reds. Like, I think people usually, no one likes feeling like someone's trying to recruit them, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I think, is it worth having conversations about topics? Yes, it is worth that. I wouldn't go about it as if you're trying to recruit someone, because I think people will resent that. But I think that, is it worth talking to people about political issues? Yeah, absolutely it is. And I would imagine talking to your peers is like, that's a good group of people to talk with, because you find yourself, you know, in social situations where you have time to, you already think of each other kind of as equals or as human. And so that's a good place to have these conversations. Yeah, being bullied is bad. How do you deal with it? Well, if we're talking about cyberbullying, I mean, I hate when people dismiss cyberbullying by saying it's just don't use the computer so much, because like, come on, it's 2019. But it is true that like it's super important to like make friends who are not super online, and people who just like could not care less about what people are saying on X website, you know what I mean? And that kind of helps to ground me. If it comes to real life bullying, well, that's a little harder, but you basically just have to remember that you do not have to spend the rest of your life with these people, and someday you will look back and feel sorry for them. Queen Nadia says, Natalie, I found a very interesting music duo called 100 Gex. Have you heard of them? They slap hard as fuck. I have not heard of them, Nadia, but on your recommendation, it sounds like they, sounds like I should check them out. Previous Mammoth says, hey Natalie, hope you're doing well. What's your take on Lobster Daddy going to rehab? So I guess the question's referring to Jordan Peterson checked into rehab. I think for Klonopin addiction, my thoughts are that addiction is a terrible thing, and I genuinely hope that he gets better, because I know what that feels like, and I don't wish it on anyone. And maybe I'm supposed to say like, maybe I'm supposed to laugh at him, but like, I don't know, I just don't think it's funny. I think it's I feel bad for him. I wish he would have better opinions, but I hope he recovers from the addiction, because Klonopin addiction, that's a whole trip, friends. that's a super not a fun time. Also, I think like it's hard not to have a Klonopin addiction when you get yourself into the point where you're that much of a public figure. Like, it's a lot of things to stress you out. So I kind of empathize, I guess. Oh God. So how we reach a point where I'm like, yeah, I can see myself ending up like Jordan Peterson. I guess that's part of what this is, isn't it? Okay. Ariana says, what advice do you give a new trans woman starting out dealing with the coming out process? Do I post on social media to weed out the haters or let the rumors do the work? Uh, well, it sort of depends on like who, like what your social media circles are like and like what you do for a living and things like that. If I could give my past self advice, the advice I would give myself is just delete everything and start over. Like delete Facebook, delete it all, make new accounts, start a new life from the bottom. Like that's, I mean, in my case, like that's kind of what I should have done. uh, Other people I know don't do that though, and they seem to be okay with it. I would say that it is probably better at some point to say something than to let people just be confused or let other people try to speak for you. Um, so I mean, I understand not wanting to have the conversation with certain members of the family because like I was actually in retrospect, I was such a coward about coming out to certain people. I kind of did let, my parents do it for me. I had one living grandparent, one living grandfather, and I just let my dad tell him for me because I just wasn't up to it, which in retrospect seems kind of cowardly, but I guess I at the time was not very articulate on the subject of what I was doing and why. It's like only now that I feel like I'm able to really describe. So I have a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins that I have not seen since before I transitioned. And so I'm actually kind of happy that there's been a long break with me never having been in contact, because it means that next time I do see them, I can speak in a very articulate way, I think, about, you know, what's up with me. And I also think that, I think in a way, the easiest way to communicate that you transition is just to let people see it, right? Like, like at first it's, you say, oh, I'm a woman. And like, these people who've known you as a man for 20 years, like, are just like, like that doesn't mean anything to them. You know what I mean? It just seems like you're crazy. So, but when they see this, like, okay, that like that there's like something for them to make sense of that now, not that they will totally understand, I mean, this is weird too, but it's, most people sort of don't understand what being trans is, and the visual evidence is kind of, I think it makes the biggest impression. I think my immediate family like really got it because of how I started presenting, like that's I'm hesitant to say that because I know I already have a reputation of being overly concerned about passing or overly concerned about presentation or performance. But one reason why I am preoccupied with those things is that in my personal experience, those are the things that have tended to matter for me. So that may not be the case for everyone, but it has sort of been my experience, is that like the things I say about myself matter less than like how I present to the world. That's just me though. Syntax88 says, what are you reading / watching these days? Who is inspiring you? Well, as I said in an earlier question, I've been reading a lot and watching a lot actually. It's gonna be weird to say what it is that I'm reading without telling you the topic of the video, but I'll just say that I'm reading like a lot of books about aesthetic philosophy this month. So, like I said, I read the Kant stuff to get really abstract and philosophical about it, but I've also been reading some like more recent stuff. I just read this a chapter from a really interesting book called Fierce, The History of Leopard Print, by Joe Weldon, which is about it's about leopard print and just like its history in fashion and just what it means. I read There's a book called Class by Paul Fussell, which is this outdated but still relevant and hilarious book from the 80s about like social status in America. It's just like, I suggest reading it if you're, especially if you're a middle class white American, because it will skewer you alive. Like it will take all your secret prejudices and hopes and aspirations and anxieties and just like rip into them. It's it's a pretty satisfying read for that reason for me as a as a middle class white. Um, and what I'm watching, I have been watching Pose. Um, I have been watching the YouTuber Maggie May Fish. I'm watching her video essays. I've been watching um, Jeffree Star and Gigi Gorgeous. I've been watching. Uh, so that's a lot of things I've been up to lately. I know so many books this time. I'm like having a whole intellectual moment. Uh, June says, "You've been a big inspiration to me finally coming out as trans. Any simple advice for a 31-year-old trans woman?" Uh, I never know what kind of advice to give on these kinds of questions. My first is always like, learn how to shape your eyebrows. Skincare is at least as important as makeup. And I guess, I don't know, having an emotional support system or whatever is also important. Uh, you, yeah, you need like someone, you need some like one or two like people you're really close to. Like they're gonna get you through this. That's a big piece of, um, that's the real advice. And then the superficial stuff is like, is don't do what I did and spent the whole first year of your transition caking on drag queen makeup and not doing any skincare. Look at this. Do you see this glow I have? I'm not even wearing foundation. This is just concealer, lipstick as a blush. And look at this. I'm look how glowy I am. Like this time last year, I would have fucking caked on the full coverage foundation, the powder everywhere. Like it made me look like a like I was wearing stage makeup all the time. Don't make my mistakes. Okay. Todd Pagel says, "Hey mom, I stand your friendship with Jenny Nicholson. Can you spill a little tea, throw a little shade, or tell us something we don't know about her?" Oh, no shade. I have no shade to throw whatsoever about Jenny. But the uh, here's the sweet tea. She's like one of the few people I've ever met who's like a YouTuber that's like as entertaining in person as she is in her videos. Like she's so like she just talks and it's just like she's like I'm not like this, right? I'm very like shy and I'm very like as you can hear in my live streams, like I stumble over words and I stutter trying to think of ideas. But she just like fluently produces just hilarious ideas that she's just like riffing all the time. Like it's so fun to be around. Yeah, so and this is hardly tabloid worthy, but yeah, she's a really cool person. Jean Nifix or Nifix says, "Hi Natalie, I just started the process of transitioning this month, and one of the lots of these this month, huh? And one of the first things I've done for myself is to begin taking trans-speaking voice lessons to healthily, convincingly feminize my voice day to day. I feel that I'm in good hands, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to share about your own vocal feminization process. You have such a beautiful voice." Oh, thanks, Jean. For example, did you have a voice coach? Did you start trying out your voice here and there? Or was there a moment when you decided to fully commit to your voice full time? How long did it take you to feel like your voice was your own? Thanks. Sending much love from Chicago. So, uh, I'll answer your questions in no particular order. Did I start? I mean, I kind of did like a blitz transition. Like, once I decided I was going to do it, I did everything full time, all the time, right away. And so to me, there was no like, oh, there was no period where like, oh, I have a boy voice and I have a girl voice and I alternate between. No, like, I just, I went fully in 100% from the beginning. And that said, it took me a long time to find my female voice, and I would say that at first I didn't have a formal vocal coach. I had a close friend who was a trans woman who was helping me. A couple of close friends who were trans women who were helping me, and I watched like every single YouTube video about the subject. Some of which is more helpful than others. If you do the same thing, you'll find things that work for you and things that just don't. And I actually have just started. I've decided that I want to work on my voice again. I want to go back to working on it. Um, I think my voice is fine. Like, it seems to serve its purpose, right? Like I answer I get mammed on the phone. It doesn't seem to clock me when I'm out. Um, in real life, but because I'm a YouTuber and everyone knows I'm trans, and it's you know what I mean. Like I had to be that much more. Um, conscious of everything than I would if I was like just a regular trans woman going stealth. So I do kind of want to work on it more, and so I'm working now with a voice coach who was credited at the end of my last video. His name is Charles Armstrong. He's also a friend of mine in Baltimore, and he specializes in trans voice. He takes trans voice students. So if you're interested, he has a whole Discord community. You can find him on Patreon. It's the Patreon is Crammed Voice Lessons. That's CRAMD Voice Lessons on Patreon, and he leads a whole Discord community that does trans voice. So that I would say is there. That's my vocal coach recommendation if you want someone who does online lessons. Otherwise, it just takes time. I suggest basically the only thing that ultimately did it for me was just spending hours and hours and hours and listening to recordings of myself and making changes and it just takes a long time. So you have to be patient with it. But try to practice a little bit every day. And I would try to do it full time, because if you're only doing it during voice training or during voice practice, and then you're just back to boy voice when you are out in the world, like it's hard for it's hard to reach a point where your feminized voice feels like your real voice. Like I cannot speak like I used to speak 3 years ago. I don't know. I don't know how to, it would take me honestly hours of practice to relearn how to talk like that. So you want to get to that point, right? At least I don't know. Maybe you don't, but that my goal was to just totally change my voice. Okay. Dan Cole says, "Tell me about your burgeoning friendship with Jenny Nichols." Oh my gosh, another Jenny question. I've been a fan of hers for years, and after all, friendship is magic. P.S. Just discovered you binged All My Love. Thanks, Dan. What can I tell you about my friendship with Jenny? Well, I was introduced to Jenny by Lindsay. Lindsay is like Lindsay Ellis. She's a very impressive talent scout when it comes to YouTube. She just has a very good eye for who's gonna get big. I'm honestly, it's honestly pretty impressive. Like she plucked me up when I was like an alcoholic cross-dresser with 10,000 views on a video, and she I don't know, she saw something in me, and like she got in touch on Patreon and was like, like I need to meet you. And so I happened to be in New York, and she at a time when she was there, and she like took me out to drinks, and just kind of like we talked about all kinds of YouTube things. And then around the same time I think she had found Jenny, and they hung out, and then eventually we all hung out together, and then I started just hanging out with Jenny when we were in the same city, and that's how this happened. So yeah, I've met so many great people through Lindsay, and yeah, Jenny is one of them. Yeah, Lindsay's definitely the fairy godmother of well, I don't know, of bread tube. It's a little weird calling this a bread tube, since really it's like film tube, right? Lindsay's film tube. I would say Jenny's like film tube, like theme park tube. Even like, am I really left tube? Like I feel like that's like a weird summary of my content, but I guess that is what has caught on. uh, Roland says, any updates on your videos potentially being archived in the Library of Congress? How did you react when they contacted you? Does the archiving process require any work on your end, especially since you're releasing new content? Yeah, so the thing about that, I recently looked back on the Library of Congress thing and discovered that there's a form you have to fill out granting them permission that we never filled out. So I just did this last week. I finally filled out the form that gives them permission. I was like shocked when they first contacted me that they would want to. In a way, like the thought of it kind of haunts me, because it's like the Library of Congress. I don't know how the archive works, but I assume it stays there like for a long time, like presumably like for the rest of America. So like, how do you make content when you can't make content if you're imagining it being archived forever, right? Like, I can't sit there writing jokes about the mouthfeel and then imagining like some scholar in 2095 searching through the history of early YouTube and like, well, you can't think about that. You have to make videos for now. But it does amuse me sometimes to imagine some future YouTube scholar, you know, looking through the silly nonsense I made. I mean, do you think Groucho Marx thought people would be watching Duck Soup in 100 years? No, like you can't think about that. You just can't think about that. James Code says, "Hi Nat, hope you're well and looking after yourself. I've recently started collecting vaporwave vinyl, and I was wondering if you've ever had any strange or super niche hobbies." That's a great super niche hobby. I've been thinking about vaporwave lately. Well, actually, I've been doing a little research, not vaporwave exactly, but sort of the stuff that's something relevant to the video I'm working on. Do you guys know Dan Bell, the YouTuber? He's like an urban explorer who does the Dead Mall series. I've been watching those lately, and I guess it's considered like, it's sort of like a vapor. I mean, that's not vaporwave in and of itself, but it's sort of like a tangential to what I feel like is the vaporwave aesthetic, which is like a kind of strange look back on 80s and 90s consumerism, right? And like, there's someone on YouTube who makes those videos that are just like, it's like Africa by Toto playing in an empty shopping mall, right? Like, that's considered like a vaporwave kind of aesthetic. Also, well, my ex, I went to music school with this guy you may have heard of, called Adam Neely, who does a channel about music now. And he did a video a couple years ago about the music theory of vaporwave, which is really good. And one of the things he talks about in that video is these like the Kmart tapes, which is this like a discovery of some archivist, right, or something, collector or something, basically discovered these cassette tapes, which were like what Kmart played in their stores in the late 80s and early 90s, and it has these tracks on it. They're just like vaporwave gold. And I was actually listening to the Kmart tapes a couple days ago because I like them. Like, there's one of them, I forget what it's like unknown track number 1 from the Kmart tapes. That's just like, there's a strange magic to it. Actually, I already have to pee. I'm sorry, guys, but it's because I'm a woman with a tiny bladder, and also I just downed it iced coffee. So I'm gonna play that Kmart song while I'm gone. Let's see if I can find it real quick. There it is. Be right back. Okay, that's enough Kmart. Oh god. What a weird stream I left behind. Just Kmart and bread posting. Okay. Where were we? Well, when we did, James Coates says, "Hi Nat, hope you're well, looking after yourself. I recently started collecting." Oh yes, we just did. We just did vaporwave. Okay. Lognat92 says, "Hi Natalie, hope you had a lovely equinox." Oh, I did. Are there any works of fiction that you know you should read, watch, hear, taste, but you just can't bring yourself to actually consume? Whether it's like a hype aversion thing, or you just know it's not going to be a pleasant experience for whatever reason, so you actively resist taking it in. As always, thanks as always, and looking forward to whatever you do next. I feel like a lot of TV dramas are like this because I just don't have a lot of time in my life. Like the biggest one for the last decade was Game of Thrones. Like I've watched like a couple episodes of Game of Thrones, but you know, at this point, I'm never gonna watch it. It's done. Like I don't need to watch it. So I'm just missed that one. And basically all video games. I have never played a video game, and I never will. That's not true. I did used to play video games a little bit, but it is kind of like a part of our culture that I feel like I'm kind of like very not. You know, people ask me about it all the time, but I just like don't play video games ever. like obviously, like in the past of this channel, I did like play The Sims and I played Pokemon and things like that, but like I basically haven't played like I'm like the least gamer person in the 21st century. It's pretty amazing. Thanks, Lugnut. Jessica Loganoff says, did you see the YouTuber Boyform's response to your men video? He makes the case that your perspective of trans men, that the perspective of trans men is highly useful in answering the questions you posed. I found it super interesting. I've seen that video around. Like, a lot of people posted it on my subreddit. I started watching it earlier today, actually, but I haven't like watched most of it. So, no, I haven't seen it, but I intend to watch it in the next week, and I'm very interested to hear what he says. A lot of people tell me that like I really need to talk about trans men more, and I think that might be true. I guess I sort of worry, like, I don't know. It's a little weird to me that people are always asking, like, talk about trans men, talk about trans men, talk about trans men. Like, instead of telling me to talk about trans men, shouldn't the conversation be like, watch more trans men YouTubers? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I should be speaking for trans men. You know, I'll speak for cis men because no one will defend them. So I'll, you know, I can say whatever I want about cis men because no one cares about them. But trans men, people, I don't know if it's the best thing that I speak for trans men. You know what I mean? But I also hear often enough people want me to include trans men's perspectives in my videos. So that, I mean, I basically hear that, and it's something that I can try to do. Although, you know, it's another thing where like when something's not my perspective, I kind of also have to be a little more cautious with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because my videos tend to be so jokey and so irreverent and so like heterodox that, like, do you really want me being jokey and irreverent and sexual and heterodox and content about trans men? I don't know. Like, I don't know how well that would go over. You know what I mean? Because in part it's that. So I would be a little more deferential, I think, when talking about you know, a group that I don't belong to. Like, people there seems to be like a big demand for like the trans male ContraPoints, but that's the trans male ContraPoints has to be a trans man. You know what I mean? Like that cannot be a trans woman. Okay. Alejandro Herrera says, "Hey Gorge," and the GG Gorgeous cadence. "Hey Gorge." Wow, that was a little shady. Hey Gord, I've been thinking about GG lately. We're doing another deep dive of a GG video for this next video. Have you ever considered doing different genres of video essays, or that is when H-Bomb did his essay on Transformers in the style of Jenny Nicholson? Oh my god, why don't you guys all become patrons of Jenny Nicholson instead if you love her so much? I love her too. You actually should become patrons of Jenny. Sorry, what were you saying? When H-Bomb did his essay on Transformers in the style of Jenny Nicholson video with long cuts in the bed full of stuffed toys, what do you think the chances are that if Trump loses in the general, he won't concede and leave off? Okay, these are different questions. Got it. Okay, so have I considered doing different genres of video essay? I mean, I feel like I do. Like, I feel like my videos are pretty diverse in terms of like from one video to the next. Like, stylistically, they're pretty different compared to most YouTubers. I feel like I have like 3 different styles that I sort of alternate between. You know, you have like the dialogue videos, you have the like me almost like responding to a group of people, like or to there's like the seduce men video, you know, that I do once every 3 months. There's the more like sober, more academic type of video. I don't really intend to do a video that's like literally just a kind of pastiche another person's style, but I do kind of like to mix and match like styles from a lot of other people, you know. Okay, your other question was, what do I think the chances that Trump won't concede? I think, I don't know, like 50-50, just to make up a number based on my gut feeling. Final ask, do you think more fascists will start to include climate change and hard green politics in their attempts to recruiting, or at least get people to consider the fascist solutions to climate change? I don't think so, no. I don't think that. I mean, I think global warming is not a recruitment to kind of topic. No one wants to think about global warming. You know what I mean? Global warming is the thing you kind of have to force feed people. It's not seductive in the way that like fascists like to use like seductive things. You know, I think I don't think it helps anyone politically at this point to be total global warming denialists. But I don't see them making that a big issue now. Excuse me. Wednesday, Larara Rasputin, nice, says, "Hey, Nat. So our good buddy Lil Benny has been arguing that hip hop isn't real music because it lacks harmony and melody. The kind of lunk-headed take you'd expect from the rhythmless dorks and sheltered neurotics that enjoy classical music." This is a joke. Don't kill me, please. Seriously, though, if you had to argue with Ben and defend rap, how would you do it? Or just name one JPEG Mafia song. Well, the video I'm working on now, I know you guys must be very confused about what the topic is at this point, but I would say this comes the closest to hip-hop commentary of any video I've done so far. And, well, I mean, like, this like hip-hop isn't music because music has to have XYZ attributes that I've just arbitrarily decided. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same kind of argument as like trans women aren't women because they don't have chromosomes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is Ben's like usual way of reasoning. He just asserts something likely to provoke a lot of angry discourse, then defends it with this kind of like pedantry that he tries to present as logic. And I find that so boring that it makes me want to cry. Dudley says, "Hi, Natalie. My youngest daughter came out as bi, and I think I'm a good ally and supportive of the LGBT community. However, when it comes to trans community, my understanding and knowledge for general and theoretical, I was basically in a cave looking at shadows on the wall until I started watching your videos." Thank you. This is several paragraphs, so I'm going to try to locate the one that ends in a question mark here. I have recommended your channel to friends and on social media. I will read all of these later, but I, on stream, just don't like to read several paragraphs because it's better for me to just respond to the questions. However, there are a number of people I know whose transphobia comes mostly from a place of ignorance, which could be mitigated by watching your channel, but would be put off by some of your edgier humor. Some of them would have an aneurysm if they saw the sommelier bit. Yeah. Do you know of any channels or resources I could recommend to these people? Yeah, so I get questions somewhat often about like, because my videos they are like the persuasion of those videos is aimed like largely at a very specific subgroup of people, which is like edgy 20-year-olds, and they do not work, for example, on like Facebook moms who are yeah, like you say, probably not gonna go for this kind of edgy style. There's other trans creators. I mean, I would say most trans creators on YouTube have, you know, a more family-friendly style than I do. I'm kind of, in the grand scheme of things, really the exception there. So you could try one of them. You could try. It's been a while since I've done, so I don't really do like basic like trans 101 stuff anymore, but I'm trying to think of someone who does a great job with that. Chat, can you recommend anyone who's like really good on like who would you send like to, I don't know, people who go to church and they're not gonna want to think about the mouthfeel, but still need to learn about trans issues. I've always liked Kat Black's videos, but she doesn't really do trans 101 anymore either. She just like these very particular videos about mostly about like trans women and dating. There's people in the chat recommending some people. Oh, Jamie Dodger. I love him. Yeah, he does. He's a trans guy who does. It's a lot of videos that are sort of like, they're like explainer videos, but they're about his life. Those are really good. And he's just like a likable person, you know. Yeah, Steph Senyotti. Send Steph Senyotti. She's like, Steph Senyotti is a good choice because she's very nice, she's very cute, she's very wholesome, her mom is lovely. Like, it's, you can't not like Steph Senyotti, you know what I mean? Yeah, for non-binary people, Ash Hardell, definitely. I think those are good suggestions. Zoe Roth says, "Hey Natalie, what a fucking month." Tell me about it. I'm glad you were able to step away and take time for yourself. Question time. I am a trans woman that is interested in dating cis guys. I'm so sorry. I feel like Tinder or other dating apps will get me the dick or no dick experience, which is what I'm hoping to avoid. Is there any other method that you've found successful to find cute cis guys that treat us like human beings while at the same time avoiding dangerous situations and chasers? So I have to say that basically all the successful dating experiences I've had over the last year or two have been people that one way or another I've met on YouTube. So that's not an option for most people. So I would say that, you know, Tinder is not always terrible. I mean, I really can't use Tinder now, I feel, because I'm here's a relatable problem. I'm just super fucking famous, and it just makes things really fucking hard for me. But I think, you know, normal people, like, I don't know why, but trans women, like, they loved, like, responding to these shitty guys and then just posting it online. Don't do that. Stop doing this. Why do trans women do this? Like, just ignore them. Ignore the messages from those guys. You know what I mean? Put trans girl or whatever in your profile, and that, you know, hopefully people read your fucking profile and they know. And if they want to know about your genitals, just stop responding. Just, you know what I mean? Don't do discourse about it. It's not worth talking to these people. It's a waste of your time. All Tinder is a way for you to meet people. It's just a way for you to, like, set up. It's not even to meet people. It's to decide to meet someone. So basically that's the mindset I would suggest going into those apps. Like, you know, it's mostly going to be garbage. All you're trying to do is meet one good person. Nicholas Mark says, "Hey Natalie, can average people contribute to LeftTube? What advice would you have for people wanting to contribute content that have no experience?" So you're talking about videos, I would assume. I guess my advice would be, don't think of it as making a LeftTube video, you know what I mean? Because if you think of it as, oh, I'm going to make a LeftTube video, what you're going to do is you're just going to make your version of a video that already exists. Well, don't do that, because I mean, do whatever you want, but my advice is that making your version of a video that's already out there, like, don't do something that there already is. Find something unique that you have to contribute. Like, it doesn't have to be completely original. Like, obviously, pretty much every topic under the sun has been covered at some point, but you have your own unique take on things, right? And so find a subtopic that's, like, especially interesting to you and maybe focus on that. I'd say that's a kind of useful way to contribute. Instead of trying to be like discount ContraPoints or whatever, or discount philosophy tube, you know, find what it is that your life experiences or your education or your whatever it is you have to offer or can contribute, and then contribute that. So definitely, I say there's always room for more perspectives, and you know, it's only true that everything's been done. Everything has not been done. You know, that's only true if you're trying to be someone else. Kayla Roma says, "Not sure what to ask. So much going on. Feels like the last AMA was 6 months ago. I know. I can't believe it's only been a month since the last one. I have too many questions. Problematic political fave, thoughts on the whole impeachment thing. Still like Bernie for the primary. Single largest net good policy you would implement as president. Okay. Problematic political fave. Gosh, I don't even have any political. Do I like any politicians? I guess Marianne Williamson is pretty problematic, and I kind of like stand on some weird level. So there's a problematic fave. Thoughts on the whole impeachment thing. I basically like the idea of Trump being put through impeachment hearings. So I don't know if that's gonna make the country better, but I like it. um, Still like Bernie for the primary. Yeah, I do. Yeah, Bernie. That's my top choice, I guess. Bernie and Elizabeth Warren are both fine with me. Single largest net good policy you would implement as president? Single payer healthcare. I think that would be the first thing I tried to do. NL Lumi says, "Hey Gorge, huge fan here. He's also autistic and a bit talkative. That's okay. Up until a few months ago, by talkative you also mean several paragraphs. So I'm going to find your question. I'm looking for a question mark here. Would I be interested in having official in-house translators? Maybe. But I think like at the moment I've had such good luck with the community, like so many people just volunteer to do it that I haven't like, I don't know, maybe I should be paying people to do translations, but people seem there's so many people who are willing to just volunteer their time, which is amazing, that I sort of haven't felt like I even need to. But I noticed you mentioned like having some translations that are not approved. I don't really go through the old videos anymore approving translations, so I'll try to do that sometime, because I don't really go back and look through at those, like if there's any new transitions of old videos. The newer videos I usually will be approving them, within the month that they come out. Timala Peranovic says, "I think it's really strange that I've never seen my dad cry." Not once. There's something about men crying that really tugs at the old heartstrings for me. What do you think what that's about? Well, I think when men do like drop their facade of power and masculinity and like just show vulnerability, there is something touching about it, right? Because of its being sort of the breaking through of sentiment or vulnerability through a shell or an exterior. So that's my take on it. I guess I see what you mean. I agree with you, because women just cry all the time. Like I guess not. I mean, it's not all women, but like, you know what I mean. It's like yeah. There's just another woman crying. Whatever. But like, but when men cry, you're like, oh, some shit is going down. That's probably sexist and bad, but I'm sorry. Well, Abby Finkel says, do you think dysphoria is externally or internally generated? That is, if we lived in a world without transphobia, where trans identities were immediately and 100% accepted by all people, would dysphoria still exist? Well, interesting. I guess I don't really think of myself as like, to me, dysphoria, that's like a very like early transition and pre-transition kind of experience, because which is not to say that I'm like totally happy with my with my past or with my body or with my anything. But I guess I kind of don't really like, categorize these experiences in my head. um, I don't really categorize them as um, like dysphoria. You know what I mean? I categorize it as like, oh, I just like bodies, like insecurities about my appearance, or with my. I guess when it comes to like my past and my like dislike of looking at my past self, or like dislike of even thinking about in some ways that like those like the certain past experiences, like I guess that's dysphoria. Do I think there would be I mean, your question is if we lived in a world without transphobia, where trans identities were immediately and 100% accepted by all people. It's hard for me to imagine like what that would even look like, because I think there's a difference between transphobia and like some trans identities not being accepted immediately, because I think that part of um, you know, part of what gender is the assumption that there's sort of two categories of people that present, visually in a different way, not just visually, but in terms of all the senses, they do present in a different way. And if we just completely dropped the idea that what gender is gender is something that you identify based on the way someone looks, and instead started thinking of gender as a purely psychological phenomenon, it's a little bit hard for me to imagine like what being trans even would mean in that situation. You know what I mean? I just sort of don't get like I don't get what people are talking about when they talk about hypotheticals like this. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's because I'm so embedded in the status quo that like I have trouble imagining anything else. But I just like to me, like what is a trans identity in a world where no one's gender is assumed, where gender is thought to be totally psychological, right? Like what does it mean to identify as a woman when all woman means is a psychological state? You know what I mean? Like this is like I don't know how to talk about, like I'm so used to the idea that like I just can't talk about this. That like I sort of don't know how much I should say. You know what I mean? But like, because I don't know the answers to these questions, right? Like I don't have some kind of like sinister true scum agenda. I promise. I'm just trying to understand myself. You know what I mean? Like, and I, uh, I don't know. There's a trans people, right, who present totally within the normal range of what is expected of someone who's assigned their gender at birth. And I'm not saying they're not valid. I'm just saying that like I sort of don't recognize it as what being trans is to me, you know? Like I don't know what's going on in their head, but to me, the way I think of my own trans identity, it's so connected to this desire to, you know, to socially fit in as a woman, and to sort of like not necessarily look exactly like a cis woman, but to kind of like serve womanhood. You know what I mean? Like that's to me is what my feelings of trans identity amount to. And so when someone identifies as trans without either of those components, like either like a desire to socially fit in as their target gender, or as or with any desire to change their appearance or change their body, like I'm not saying that it's not valid. I'm just saying I just have a hard time like making sense of what that means, and no one's ever really explained it to me in a way that I understand. Um, which is again, I'm not saying that it's not valid. I'm just saying I don't understand it yet. So those are my thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe. uh, June says, "Wow, voice crack, great." June says, "How are you?" Uh, I'm good, June. Hey, how are you? Uh, yeah, I'm doing good. I'm just like in the midst of like I'm in the midst of working on this video like crazy. Like I filmed some on location. So this is like the first video where I like hired a film crew, like a couple of film students, honestly, to help me film on location in a space that was rented out. That's not just like a hotel. So I filmed that part. I have written a 7,500 word script, which is done, and now I am going to tonight I'm gonna start building the set, and I'm gonna hopefully start filming the rest of this thing tomorrow. I've got this video is a absolute gargantuan monster of a video. Like I've got 4 wigs in the other room that I've been styling for this. Like we've got it's a whole thing. I can't wait to show it to you. New video should be out. I originally wanted to have it out like by September 30th, but let's be honest, like I'm going to finish filming it September 30th. And if I go crazy editing it, I can probably get it out 1 week from today, so October 4th. Realistically, it might not be out till like October 6th, but I'm gonna try. Like I'm gonna work around the clock, and I'm gonna try for October 4th. But no promises. Okay. Rachel Domagalski says, "Hey Natalie, I've expressed similar thoughts about how having to explicitly state my pronouns in hyperwoke spaces makes me uncomfortable as a trans woman because my normal state of affairs is having strangers affirm my gender without needing preemption. Despite advocating doing it for those that need it, I was accused of throwing non-passing and non-binary people under the bus. Do you ever get the feeling that there are opinions about being trans that trans women aren't allowed to have publicly, and that the narrative that woke cis people get about trans people ignores the experiences of binary trans people that are post-transition? How do we get people to understand that trans people are not a monolith and that's okay? Also, have you listened to any oscilloscope music? It slaps hard." Okay, well, Rachel, you're the first one to explicitly go in on the original topic of the controversy at the beginning of the month. So I guess I may as well share my thoughts about it. I think like I'm kind of only now at a point where I'm like really ready to have this conversation. Like I really hate the way like with these like social media controversies or cancelings or whatever, like there's this expectation, oh, you need to apologize right away, otherwise it's insincere. Because that's exactly the opposite of how an apology works, right? Like a sincere apology is always going to take a while, right? Because when you're being attacked by people, you get defensive and angry and hurt, and like we make no room for people to feel defensive and angry and hurt. Not even if they, you're not even allowed to go quiet. You have to keep talking, and you have to say all the right things, and you're supposed to produce, under those circumstances, an apology that people find convincing. But it's like, to learn from your mistakes and to grow and to understand what you did wrong, these are things that take weeks, not hours, And so I wish that was the expectation. Well, whatever. It's been weeks, so let's talk about it. I mean, I do think that a disproportionate number of people who talk about trans issues very, very constantly in public are binary trans people who are very early in the process, in particular when it comes to I don't know among non-binary what percentage of people are like sort of earlier in their journey or understanding, but my sense that with binary trans people tend to, for the first 2 years of their transition, they tend to jabber about it nonstop, because when you're transitioning, it's the only thing you can think about, and then they kind of find themselves in the place that I'm finding myself in now, where it's like, after all this it's like after all this like turmoil and strife and obsession and work and struggle, suddenly we like kind of fit back into society. And it's like, that itself takes a moment to readjust to, right? Because I think one of the issues that I've had with this controversy is like, I'm sort of not used yet to the idea that like, because in my head I still kind of think of myself as like a gender freak, like so I'm sort of not used to the fact that like that's actually not how most people see me. And I actually do have like, I have like sort of reacquired all this privilege by, basically passing and by, um, you know, presenting in a pretty standard binary way that is like immediately intelligible to most people. And I think that I'm sort of haven't learned yet how to negotiate, like, how to talk about trans issues from this perspective that's, compared to a lot of people in the conversation, very privileged. Um, do I think that binary trans women aren't allowed to publicly talk about our preferences? Sometimes I do feel that way, to be honest. But I also think that, one of the reasons for that is like, we don't need, we don't really, we don't need to ask for much, right? Like, our requests are kind of like, look, just treat me like everyone else. That's kind of our request. And then there's, a lot of other trans people who are like, no, I need this special accommodation, right? So that I need special accommodation people, and that just treat me like anyone else people, they are in conflict. It's a conflict of needs. And I wish there was like a better, more like sophisticated framework for dealing with that kind of conflict of needs situation. Like, a lot of people within the wake of this mentioned to me, like, in disability discourse, there's this like, sort of, there's this established way of talking about, when you have sort of like conflicting ability needs, right? Where like people who are deaf and hard of hearing, for example, need subtitles, but there are people who have like ADHD who get really distracted by subtitles. So there's like, there's sort of like opposite needs. And I think that's kind of what's going on when it comes to like, the case of like, people who use binary pronouns that are usually correctly assumed their gender, like, we just want to be treated like anyone else. And then there's people who use like they them only, or people who use binary, who are binary trans people, but they don't usually have their correct gender assumed, and they want people to ask rather than assume. So it's again, it's like these conflicting needs. And I mean, I think the solution is, that in these spaces, like the binary people, we just kind of have to suck it up and get used to the idea that like in like trans inclusive spaces, like, yeah, it's just going to be different rules than it is in like a sports bar. And an important part of that is like, everyone, like, if we're going to be asking people pronouns, you kind of have to ask everyone. Otherwise, it is that clocked thing, you know what I mean? Or that thing where like, oh, I'm just like one trans woman on this panel that's a bunch of cis people. Other panels that are all cis people, they don't do the pronoun thing, but they looked at this sheet and saw there was a trans person on the panel, so now we have to go sit around just saying our pronouns. That's the thing that bothered me, that caused me to tweet in the first place, right? Is that I had these experiences before where I was like doing a panel at an event or something, and like, because trans YouTuber Natalie Wynn was there, like, we have to all say our pronouns, and I'm just like, ugh, like, but, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know how to talk about this in public. I clearly fucked it up. I've not listened to any Oscilloscope music. That sounds interesting. I'll check it out. Labor Wave Dashing says, hey Natalie, what's your favorite part of making a video? Sorry if this has been answered in the past. I don't think it has been asked, actually. Favorite part? I guess my favorite part is like color grading. That's like a weird response, but I love, like, I have this new, like, raw footage, right, that I've put so much work into getting, from the wardrobe to the hair to the makeup to the set design to writing the script to filming it, to finally put it into Premiere, look at it, and then just spend, a little bit of time just making it pop, like the colors pop and the contrast is right and all that. Like, Oh, I love that. Like that's the most fun part for me because it's kind of like this is where you get the biggest sense of like sudden payoff. Like you see all your hard work come to life on the screen. And then you get sick of looking at that footage by the time you're done editing it. But and there, when you're color grading, you know, there's this like magical moment when it's like new and exciting and it's like this big payoff. And then you look at it for 100 hours while editing it, and then by the time you actually release the video, you can't stand to look at it another moment. uh, okay, Michaela Malvazia says, I recently launched an Instagram channel and YouTube channel, the goal being to share my trans femme transgender experiences. Post-trans femme fashion looks for and by trans women and have a much needed creative outlet, something I don't always get in more corporate professional life. Links below. My question is, any advice for starting a channel, or do you feel like celebrity success comes from having an X factor, something that cannot be taught or explained into fruition, but instead is a character or personality trait? So I think that what I usually tell people is you know, what makes it, it sounds like what you're asking about is success rather than like artistic fulfillment. What makes people succeed is a combination of things: being good at what they do, doing something that a lot of people are interested in, doing something in a way that a lot of other people aren't doing. So it's a matter of sort of being right time, right place, being good at what you do, working really hard at it, and doing something sort of original. I think what people would call an X factor might just be sort of like on YouTube, you know, having a certain kind of unique charisma seems to go a long way, right? Like the people love watching. Like take Jenny Nicholson as an example, since everyone loves her, right? Why does everyone love Jenny Nicholson? Well, because she has this personality that just like comes out of the screen at you, right? Like you feel like you're hanging out with this fun person who is like talking to you like your best friends, and that's a fun experience, right? So I mean, in my case, like I'm not very interested in Star Wars. I don't know that much about theme parks. I don't know that much about Disney movies, but like I like sitting there listening to Jenny talk about it because her personality is so fun, right? Like it's fun to feel like you are having a conversation with this person. And so that to me is like the closest thing to an X factor. Michaela shares her channel. I will check it out later, Michaela. Thank you. Dimmerton Maniac says, do you have any thoughts on how to handle people who weaponize social justice rhetoric to score points and bully other people? Hope you're doing well. I don't know how to do that. No. I mean, there definitely are people, like Twitter is basically designed to reward that. So I think it's partially a platform thing, right? Twitter is a platform where you can, you know, it's sort of designed, like it has functions like quote tweeting, right? Where you can score a lot of like points, likes, retweets by ripping something out of context, making a popular person look bad, and like increasing your own social capital, right? Like that is, I don't know how to stop that. I think it's sort of built into the way Twitter is designed, and I think that it's, you know, I think there are other. This is one reason why I've moved to other platforms, is that I don't know. I just don't know how to use Twitter well. Because here's the thing, like I'm not good at tweeting either. Like, let's be honest. Like I'm not up here saying like, oh, I was bullied off Twitter. It's so unfair. Like I mean, I kind of was bullied off Twitter. It is a little unfair, but like, are my tweets like perfect? No. I was never a good tweeter. Like Kat Black is a good tweeter. She's really good at it. I suck at it. You know, like I was never good at it. So it's really not a huge loss. I think me being off Twitter. Like I'm much better on other platforms, and it's kind of a waste of time for me to get sunk and to be like damaging my career, damaging my reputation, and hurting a bunch of other people trying to force my content into a platform that doesn't suit it. Abigail Chloe says, "Hi Natalie, glad Twitter hasn't stopped you from making YouTube videos." No, never. What are we supposed to do about all the hard racists in America? White supremacy, as far as I can tell, is one of the biggest obstacles to left-wing politics. There's studies and anecdotes showing that racist whites refusing to fund public welfare or support unions or the like if it means a person of color is benefiting. Immigration fuels the far right. I hope to outvote them in 2020, but those racist uncles will remain. Is it enough to deplatform right-wing news sources, crack down on white supremacist terrorist groups, and better educate their children, or do they need to be converted, or their territories separated from the U.S., or even silenced/imprisoned? Each method has its own downsides. Well, you know, how to solve racism in America is a problem that people have been working on for centuries. So I don't think there is an easy solution. I mean, my feeling is that like the racist uncles you're describing, a lot of people like that get really deeply entrenched in their views. But it doesn't happen for no reason, right? It happens because of Fox News poisoning. And so, you know, I don't know what to do about that apart from abolish capitalism and not have a corporate media that's, you know, run by snakes. But I think that, and unfortunately I don't see that happening soon, but I think that my approach to this, you know, back when I was really doing like a lot of anti-racist stuff, like was targeting young people who are being recruited into racist thinking, because young people are still often flexible enough that like they're still developing their identities, they're still developing their adult political orientation, and you can kind of reach them, especially since a lot of the things that are attracting them to that racist nonsense is like it's like weak bullshit, you know what I mean? Like edgy Nazi bullshit. Like, come on, like we can pull those people out. I've always thought, simply by making better content and better propaganda, better information, better facts and logic, better entertainment. I think that's, you know, worth trying. But you know, no one person can take on the responsibility of this. And like you really can't ask me or ask anyone else like, how do we end racism in America, and expect to get an answer that is all encompassing, because I don't think there is such an answer. That wannabe thought Julia says, "First off, I'm sorry what happened to you. In my opinion, you did not owe anyone an apology. Do you think you would ever do a collab with Ella or London? If so, that would be cool. Also, can I promote someone next AMA? He's someone who is a small BreadTube channel, but I think he deserves more subs because his videos are quite clearly well done, and he's a very nice person." Sure. I think I've been in touch with Ella and London. I really like both of them as people, and I think I want to get Ella to do some voice acting, because she's close with Theron, who does a lot of the stuff. So, and she's got a gorgeous voice. So, yeah, I'd like to do stuff with them. I have confidence that the two of them are gonna turn into great creators. They already are. I'm actually really proud of like London's progress on YouTube lately as well. And Ella has a great aesthetic, which she did not copy from me. She'd appreciate me saying. Drew Olivia says, "I'm scheduled for FFS in November with Dr. Spiegel. Is there anything you wish you knew beforehand in terms of preparation for the recovery? I am getting more excited the closer it gets. How long did it take your hair to be back to normal, like getting the Vaseline out? Mine should probably be the least of... my hair should be probably the least of my concerns before surgery, but I love my hair. Anyway, love the videos, and they have been incredibly helpful with coming to terms with the fact that I'm a giant transsexual. One of my main hang-ups since I started the hormones about 3 years ago was being seen that way, and your videos have helped me get past that, so thanks for being awesome. You're welcome. How long does it... Okay, so anything you wish you knew beforehand in terms of preparation for the recovery? I would say the number one thing for me that I need that would be good is like you need psychologically to prepare for the fact that not only is this everyone is pretty much aware that recovery is going to be painful, uncomfortable, and long. But what you also need to be psychologically prepared for is that in addition to that, you are going to look and feel like shit for weeks. And there's going to be moments like 2.5 weeks after surgery where you're going to think like, I've been through hell and I still look much worse than I looked before surgery. And at that moment, you're going to kind of think, what the fuck did I do? But you need to be psychologically prepared for the fact that like, oh, you know, you have not seen the result yet. It takes time. I'm about to hit 6 months since my surgery, and it's only now really that the swelling is almost entirely gone. So it takes time. Don't worry about getting the Vaseline out of your hair. There's going to be Vaseline in your hair for at least a week. But it's the least of your worries, as you said. Sean Brannon says, "Hi, Natalie. I really hope you're doing well. As a veteran ballet dancer, I couldn't help but notice your use of music from the Nutcracker in several of your recent videos, especially Arabian. Any reason for choosing those to use? Thanks. I just love Tchaikovsky, and I love the Nutcracker, and I love Swan Lake, and like I just think it works so well with my videos. Like I don't know, you know, I kind of like figure out what music works like by like scientific experiment almost. Like I play different music and see what feels right, and like what is there's the there's a bit from Swan Lake that I used for the first time in the men video. What is it? It's like the pas de quatre. I can't speak French, but like the step of four swans, the dance of the cygnets, I think it's sometimes called. That like I can't believe I never thought to use that in a video before because it's fucking perfect. Like I don't know. I just think it's like gorgeous music that like works really well beneath my jabbering. It's not particularly to me related to anything having to do with ballet. I just think it happens to work. Okay, Christopher Fox says, "Hey Natalie, in the inevitable film of your life, who plays the love interest? Much love and well wishes." Well, Christopher, I don't know because I guess I have to find out who the love interest is, huh? So, we'll see, won't we? Ali says, "I enjoy a few philosopher YouTubers for their multi-angle perspectives, and you're one of my favorites. Have you seen Wisecrack's Jared, and more specifically his take on why outrage rules YouTube and the internet? What is your take if you have one? And if you have, and if you haven't, why do you think so?" I've definitely seen Wisecrack before, but I don't know who Jared is off the top of my head. And I have not seen his take on why outrage rules YouTube and the internet, but I'd love to find out, so I should watch that video. Thank you, Ali. Kristen Healy says, "I'll keep it short and shallow. Where do you get your press-on nails? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for everything you do." Okay, so right now, these are extensions. Like these are gel extensions that are attached to my fingers, not press-ons. But when I use press-ons in my videos, they've all been done for by a wonderful nail artist and opera singer, very talented person named Hannah Spearman. I think is it Spearman's? I actually don't know how to pronounce her last name. That's embarrassing. But she's Nails for Queens NYC on Instagram, and what is she on Twitter? Let's find out. Let's send people to the right place. Nails for Queens NYC. Hannah Spireman. Nails for Queens NYC on Instagram, on Twitter. On Twitter. Willowfin. Finn. That's with Willow and Finn with 2 N's. Yeah, she does. She's done a lot of press on nails that have been on this channel. I kind of feel bad because I haven't been using them lately because I've been wearing extensions, but I'll go back to using them someday, I'm sure. Thanks, Kristen. Adam Lank says, "Hi Natalie, could you like get together with Philosophy Tube and Innuendo Studios and put together a video on how to solve capitalism?" Okay, thanks. Really appreciate your hard work, Gorge. Well, I love both of them. So I'm referencing Innuendo Studios in the video I'm working on, and I'm getting Ollie to voice something. So my boys. So I am in a sense collaborating with them. But yeah, we don't have an immediate plan to solve capitalism, but we're doing our best, I promise. Okay. I'm gonna rest my voice for just a second here. You guys, casting my life. Okay. Rachel Beebe says, "Hey Nat, how are you doing this month? Aside from the drama, how have you been? Do anything fun lately? Last month on the stream, you talked about your attraction to women. Any new thoughts on the matter? If you don't feel like getting too personal this month, second question option, sports ball. Any thoughts? Favorite teams or sports you like / follow at all? Said you love, and just letting you know, we stand the hell out of you anyways." Thank you, Rachel. Do anything fun lately? What did I do anything this month? I'm trying to think. Gosh, I've been working on this fucking video so much. Well, filming on location was fun. That was like, I mean, it's like stressful, but like, I got some footage that looks like, you guys, it's, it's a whole new level for this channel. Like the camera's like moving and stuff. It's crazy. So I hope you guys like that. Any new thoughts on attraction to women? No, not really. I'm still wherever I was in the last video, whenever in the last stream, and I really don't like. I'm about as good on sports as I am on video games. I really don't know anything about it, but this is why I have so much time to make videos, right? No sports, no video games, not even really much TV. It's just kind of YouTube videos and making YouTube videos. I guess that's kind of bad. I should probably have more nutritious mental diet than just YouTube videos all day. Well, I've been reading, like I said. Well, I'm such a nerd. Okay. Anne Boyle-In says, "You said you are concerned about you transing people, but I found your videos because I realized that's what was happening. Your work just helped give me the language and courage to come out and transition. It's not your fault you're good at explaining stuff to the cis." Great. Take a fucking sip, babe. Oh, yes, that Anne Boyle-In of Take a Fucking Sip, Babe fame. Wow. I'm glad that I'm helpful. That is somewhat reassuring, Anne. I would rather think that I'm helping people who are transitioning than I would think that I'm transing people. that does make me feel somewhat better. Tajdar Amir says, "Do you like steak burgers?" What is a steak burger? It sounds like the kind of thing I would like, since, oh, the shame, I do enjoy meat so much. Steak burgers. Like literally steak on a burger? I don't think I've actually had this. It looks, I mean, obviously I would like it because it looks great. But I don't think I've had one. Oh, fuck, it looks good. Okay. Jennifer Palmer says, "Hi Natalie, what's your favorite season? I'm excited for your next video. Sounds like it's gonna be a doozy. It should be. Yes, I think so. My favorite season is spring, hands down. Love spring. Which I know is like a contradiction to the typical white girl answer, which would be autumn. But to me, the problem with autumn is that it's like it just leads into winter, and I really don't like winter, to be honest. Like, I'm just my body runs at a very cold temperature, and so I'm just cold all the time, and I do better in warm weather. Whereas and so fall to me is kind of depressing. You feel that the first like chills coming and everything starts to die. Like whereas spring, like it's like winter's over. The world is beginning to come alive again. It just fills me with like happiness and optimism, and also that beautiful warm weather. So the weather comes back. That's what so spring's my favorite. Alice says, "Hi Natalie, getting laughs has been a key part of Trump's appeal. So I wanted to take a look at how his Democratic opponents compare. To do so, I made a survey featuring each candidate's top jokes and jabs on Twitter. As always, I encourage folks in chat to check. All right, let's take a quick look here. Okay, what are we looking at here? Each candidate's top jokes and jabs. Michael Bennett. Okay, this is... I don't have time to look at all these, but I'll look at one tweet per candidate. Whenever I get nervous before TV appearance, I just remember that Donald Trump used to do this for a living, so it can't be that hard. That's pretty good. I'll go up and call that a good tweet. Joe Biden. Happy best friend. I'm just so fed up with Joe Biden. I'm gonna say terrible tweets. God, I'll be so mad if they make me vote for Joe Biden. I'll be so mad. Cory Booker, why you like this? These are okay. I would just think they're kind of just like bad tweets though. Like they're all right, but like. Oh, except he says no, you won't to having to vote for Joe Biden. That bumps it up to good. Steve Bullock. Yeah, I don't care. These are kind of like bad tweets. I don't know. Pete Buttigieg. A tariff is a tax on Americans. These are kind of bad. I don't really care. Julian Castro. Bad. John Delaney. I'm not really loving these, to be honest. Tulsi Gabbard. Oh, well, we're doing the Boromir meme. That's pretty impressive. It's not that impressive. These are just they're all just bad. I'm sorry. I'm just like I want no one's really impressing me here. I won't be exchanging love letters with Kim Jong-un. That's pretty good. I guess good. I don't know. No one's a good tweeter. Have you ever seen Donald Trump in Greenland? Greenland is not for sale. Lol. I said bad for that too. Beta O'Rourke, just in. Sarah Huckabee Sanders becomes Fox News contributor. State TV. Yeah. No one's making me laugh. Tim Ryan. Negotiating the terms of my dance off with Andrew Young. Not yet determined. Seeking a location. Winner gets... What? Bad tweets. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders. What? He's tweeting about Cardi B's nails. That's pretty weird. That's pretty... I mean, I like Bernie Sanders, but I'm going to say bad because I'm just not... If the point is to be funny, I'm just not laughing at any of this. Alright, this is going on kind of long. Donald Trump is a racist and white supremacist. Keep your dollar. It's fine. She's trying... Elizabeth Warren trying to flex that she's the same birthday as Meryl Streep. Okay. Yeah, I'm not impressed by any of these, I gotta say. Marianne Williamson. I need to learn Spanish by tomorrow night at 9. Is that shade? That's amazing. See, I just... I love Marianne Williamson. I'm sorry. These are fabulous tweets. I don't love her. Don't vote for her, but I just like her. She's all over. Okay, Andrew Young. Before we buy Greenland, we should take care of Puerto Rico. Yeah. It's fine. He's just saying things that are true, so that's not so bad, but it's still not funny. Okay. Okay, so we learned today is Marianne Williamson's the best tweeter. Well, I'm not surprised. Okay. Vincent Thierry says, hey, Natalie, do you ever get worried about someone taking your work the wrong way? You've talked about turning far right-wing folks and turning them far left-wing. And I was wondering how much you worry about audience perception when you're working on a project. Thank you so much. I mean, you have to think about it a little bit, right? Because especially once you know that like 1 million people are watching your shit, like, you do have to think about it. But at the end of the day, you also like... The reason why I presumably have this many followers is that I was saying my real opinion and that I was being myself. And so I kind of, you know, at the end of the day, you have to do that. And maybe there will come a day when people don't like me anymore, but I feel like you just can't succeed by trying to do what you think people want. You know what I mean? You kind of have to be on some, there has to be some level of authenticity, at least for me. Foucault but with hair says, interesting name. Hi, since you set trans Twitter on fire earlier this month, I want to talk about Andrea Long Chu again. Why do you use the term transsexual? I get that part of it is shitposty, but I also see connection to how ALC uses the term. Someone reviewed ALC's new book, do you plan on reading it? And mentioned, what queer theory is least comfortable with are those of us who think of ourselves as transsexuals. People who have irreversibly medically transformed our bodies and who don't necessarily consider that a subversion or queering of anything. Can you give your thoughts on these following ALC? Okay, so first question. Why do I use the word transsexual? I use it in a kind of shitposty way, yeah. I like it as a noun because I like saying as a transsexual, you know what I mean? I guess I could also say as a transgender, as a transgendered. That is some of the same shitposty appeal. I guess it is like, I don't know. I don't think of myself as using it in a true scummy way, but maybe I sort of subtly do, because I do think that like it's hard to make so you can't, there's not really any generalizations you can make about transgender people, right? Like I was thinking with you know, one of the reasons it's difficult to talk about non-binary people is that like there's no general statement about non-binary people that's true, right? There's no distinguishing feature that unites all non-binary people, because you know, there's non-binary people who, the most basic way to define non-binary people is to be like, oh, it's people who identify as neither male nor female. It's like, well, but some non-binary people identify as both male and female. Some non-binary people identify as a woman and non-binary, or a man and non-binary. So like, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing that you could say. And so transgender, I mean, the way we use it now is an umbrella even wider than a non-binary, because it includes all the non-binary people and all the binary trans people. And according to some people, it also includes like gender non-conforming people and drag queens and cross-dressers and, you know, like, So I guess transsexual it is a bit more specific, but I also mostly just use it as a joke, to be honest. Like I just think it sounds funny. Um, and like I guess it's kind of funny because after all the like I really do believe in calling people what they want to be called, and being respectful and all that. But at the end of the day, my personal aesthetic preference is for language that is like not politically correct. And so when it comes to talking about myself, I'm always going to prefer the shittier term to the more respectful one. You know what I mean? Like I don't like calling myself like a person of transgender experience. It makes me. I don't like feeling so delicate as that. You know what I mean? Like as a transsexual, it just sounds. That's me. You know, it's like it just feels like a piece of trash that I am. uh So okay, as for Andrea Long Chu, that quote you cited, well, I think that she's being a little bit, uh, well, she's being a writerly, which means overstating everything. But I think that there is something true that like I think a lot of times trans people like gender theorists kind of like us sometimes like sort of for the wrong reasons. Like there's this idea that trans people are like oh like there's something radical, disrupting of the status quo about trans people, but a lot of trans people are not. We're not trying to end gender or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we're not trying to. Sorry, I freaked out. I thought there was a bug for a second, but I don't think there is. I think it was just the shadow of my finger on the wall. Because like I'm not really doing like my personal entire gender journey is not really aimed at abolishing gender. You know what I mean? Like it's I'm just being a woman, right? And I think I don't know. I think that like I think being a trans woman is I've been trying to reflect lately about why I feel like I am often like not on the same page as in particular people who are AFAB and non-binary. And I think part of it is that being a trans woman is like a very small box. Whereas like when you think about what being non-binary is and like what it means to present non-binary, like I mean obviously like, the official position is that there's no such thing as presenting non-binary, but like in fact there's like people have certain ideas about what it means to present non-binary, which means androgynous. And I think that actually the whole idea of androgyny is kind of like AFAB coded in the sense that like we expect an androgynous person to be sort of like an assigned female at birth person who's like skinny, short hair, like a certain kind of like boyish dress. And I think that this could all be bullshit, by the way. These are just my thoughts wandering. I feel like for like an assigned male at birth person, like people are much more inclined to either, you know what I mean? If you're presenting femininely, like there's kind of a few categories you can find yourself in. There's like okay, the best way I can think of to summarize this is to use homophobic slurs. So trigger warning, homophobic slur. If you're a feminine AMAB, the world is either going to categorize you as a a pervert, or a tranny. and like I think that like the tranny box is like, you know what I mean? Like there's trying to, if you pass as a woman, that's really your like in a way it's like your strongest option. But in order to like but like also let's be honest, like for an assigned male birth person to pass as female is for most of us very, very difficult, right? Like it's very hard to pass for an AMAB person to pass as female. And so if you're someone who's trying to do that, you are used to living in this world where you're in a very tiny box in terms of like what behavior is acceptable and like what you are allowed to wear and what you're, you know what I mean? Like, and so I think that even though there's a sense in which like, trans women have I think that there are senses where like trans women have more privilege than like AFAB trans people, because like we seem to have more visibility. People pay all this attention to us. Like there's a lot of us in kind of like high profile positions, which is I think more so true of trans women than it is of AFAB trans people. But at the same time, I feel like AFAB trans people have sort of more liberty to present in a diverse kind of spectrum of presentations. Does that make any sense? That could be total nonsense. um, I don't know. I don't know why. I just like this. I've just been like thinking about that sometimes. Can you give your thoughts on these following Andrea Long True Takes and rate them their hotness on a scale of bell pepper to Carolina Reaper? Quote, I don't think a lukewarm take is worth having. Bell pepper. Quote, lol, please assume my gender. Like, I didn't grow these things to make milk with. That's around a jalapeno. Quote, unfortunately, ContraPoints is hotter than me. We apologize for any inconvenience as we work to correct this error. That's the Carolina Reaper. God. Okay. Amy Sargent says, hey Nat, my trans mom Erin is celebrating her 4-year anniversary in a few days. Can you please tell her the following? From the bottom of my motherfucking and my fatherfucking heart, happy anniversary, Erin. I can't believe Ashley has to put up with your shit for this long. Also, you're a Han Gorge. Okay, guys. Oh, I just said guys. I'm sorry. I don't know. Do trans women actually hate being called guys? I don't mind being called guys at all. But then I remember some people don't like it. Well, you're a hun, so that's why I said it. Okay, Amy, you're a bad person. Get out of my face. You're a bad person. Robin Marie Averbeck says, hello, Natalie. So stoked to participate. As a former grad student, my question concerns transphobia in academia. Did you encounter it? And did it take any form specific to academic life? Loved your video on quitting grad school, by the way. Did I encounter transphobia in grad school? Oh, big time. Tell me all about it. Like, when I was a grad student, I mean, one of my colleagues was just like Queen Turf. Like, she literally wrote blog posts for Feminist Current. And like she, I mean, I think I've talked about this in a recent, I talked about this on Twitter a while ago, but like she want, like at the time, like I was presenting as a male, but like I was wearing like nail polish and things like that. And she told me that I needed to get psychiatric help just because I was gender nonconforming. Like, that's what level of turf she was at, And like, this person had defenders in the department. Like, she was, she wasn't ostracized at all for these beliefs. And it was actually eventually undergraduates is what it took to really push back against her. And when I was at Northwestern, there was a women in philosophy group there. That's official policy was like biological women only, like no trans women. And I hear that after I left, because of pressure from the undergraduates, they changed that rule and it just made it like, yeah, whoever, anyone can show up. But yeah, I used to have these fights, but whatever. I'm out of academia, so I have no investment in any of this. Okay. Glad you liked the video, Robin. Emerson says, I believe you recently observed that dating men, you are wistful for things you appreciate in women and vice versa. Would you enlarge on these gender-wise? I value this deeper framing of gender because I'm neither a man, a woman, nor a fluid non-binary. I'm altogether other. So I guess, like, I am someone who, like, I love agender people, but in terms of my own like sexual attraction, I tend to be attracted to gender. So I because I just feel that the way I like sort of socially and like do like flirting and things, like I sort of play off of gender a lot. So that for me is very different for with a woman than with a man. Um, with a man, I guess I really like the feeling of like. So these are all just generalizations, you know. Like there's like men and women who are of course exceptions to these general rules, but like what I like about dating men is I like this like I love this. I love the dynamic of being pursued. Maybe it's because I'm lazy, but maybe because I'm shy. But like I just like, and also it's just like self-esteem boosting, you know, to like have someone want you, and I like that. And um I think that with women, there is a kind of. I feel like I have. I feel like I have a much faster to like emotionally connect with women. You know what I mean? Like I feel like oftentimes like a sexual or like flirty relationship with a man like will be kind of superficial, you know what I mean? Like, cause like men, like they put on this act, like to like chase after you, and then you kind of play this game back. I feel like with men, I so often feel like I'm just like dancing, you know what I mean? Like I'm like playing a part in a script or something. Whereas I feel with women, I mean, I'm like, it's hard for me to say because like I've never really dated women since I transitioned. I've dated a non-binary person, but the non-binary person that I've dated is very like they present very either one gender or the other. You know what I mean? So I have at various times with this person, you know, kind of felt like I was in a relationship with a woman or felt like I was in a relationship with a man. It was never like I felt like I was in a relationship. Like it's been different ones over time, but this is like a very, you know, like I said earlier, not all non-binary people are different. This is a very specific way of being non-binary that kind of works with my attractions because, you know, he can kind of like be the man, you know what I mean? And like it's even if he doesn't 100% identify as a man, like that's kind of what he's being. That's what he's doing rather than be, you know. And he's not being a man, but he's like sort of doing man things when he's with me, and we kind of play off that dynamic. Does that make sense? Um, I really want to date a woman. I know I said that last time, but like, I just have a hard. I just don't know how to. I don't know how to be gay. So someone teach me how to be gay. Um, okay. Sarah Keith says, as I'm sure you're aware, the recent Twitter debacle led you to receive what was essentially a sympathetic rave review in the National Review. Do you have mixed feelings about that? And more broadly, have you felt that any other publicity surrounding your work has caused you to shift your own personal political views? Keep your snatch, biologically female channel. Thank you, Sarah. I think that a lot of the kind of journalistic coverage of this is really a non-event on Twitter was very exploitative. Or, like not necessarily exploitative. Well, yeah, why soften it? It's exploitative, right? It's people who need content seeing an easy way to make content and not really like engaging deeply with what actually happened because not much happened, let's be honest. And instead just like having a story they already have told a million times and want to tell again, plugging in the details and just telling a, you know, cancel culture story, which I don't care. I do not feel validated by the National Review article, nor do I view it as evidence that I fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like it doesn't have anything to do with me. And that's my feelings about that. Tom Button says, "Hi Natalie, don't have any good questions this month. So, have you ever been to Australia? If yes, how did you find it? If not, would you consider going? Can't wait for your next video. Any hint as to the theme or topic?" I've never been to Australia. I've never even been close to Australia. Like, the furthest I've been from America is England, which, like, I'm really not very well traveled, you know? Like, I've never been to Europe even. I've never been to South America. I've never been to Asia. I've never been to Africa. I've never been to Australia. I really want to travel more, but I don't know. Traveling takes time, and I'm pretty busy. But apart from my little trips to England that I tend to make for no particular reason, I have not. Yeah, I would love to go sometime. I really would. Can I drop any hints about the next video topic? Well, let's just say that in some ways, this is closer to my videos about capitalism than any videos I've done since. But it's a very new take on some of those topics. That's all I'll say for now. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to run to the bathroom again. I'll be right back. Should I give you guys music? I'll turn it up, and you can listen to Show of Hand. Bread posting is Praxa. Hey, how are you, Gorge? I got this, guess it's cider. It's really sweet. It might be a little too sweet for me. My favorite thing to drink lately is, like hard seltzer. Yeah, if you guys had those, like, they have them everywhere now. Like, Truly is one, or White Claw, I think it is. That's like, I drink that constantly. I mean, not constantly, you know. A reasonable amount. Okay. Let's turn the music down. I'm ready for some new music. It's not piano banging. Okay. It's a nice change of mood. Okay. Emma Jones says, "Hi Natalie, we know how you feel about academia as a life choice, but do you ever bounce ideas off of academic types when researching and writing your videos? I ask because you've been swimming in vastly deeper waters than you did when you first took on the alt-right, and your subject matter is rather intersectional. Not that you can't swim in those waters with the best of them." Sometimes I do. Yeah. I do have friends who are in academia still, although a lot of the people I know who are academics are like in philosophy. And increasingly, philosophy is not like the super relevant field for the stuff I'm doing. Like, it would actually be more useful, I think, to be talking to like people in sociology or like queer theory or history even, you know? Art history. Maybe I'll go back to school someday. Wouldn't that be interesting if I was like getting another master's degree while making YouTube videos? If I ever get too dumb, then we can do that. But I'm actually like, I think I've reached peak dumb already, and I'm already kind of trying to turn around because, like I said, I've been like reading a lot of books lately in the last month. I've been reading things again. Reading is good, actually. Here's the trick to, this is not the question you asked. This is just me. Sometimes I just make up questions because I just want to talk on on these streams. Like, here's how to read a book. Like, the trick is, it's all about iced coffee. Like, you got to get a big iced coffee, and then you sit in a bright room with a real book, and then just drink coffee and read. Because I can't read without caffeine, basically, because I guess this is probably what psychiatrists might call like ADHD. But like, I don't know. I just need like, I don't need Adderall. I just need coffee, you know? Like, otherwise I just like zone out and get too tired and like, so like with caffeine though, I get so focused and I just get so into it. So that's I've been drinking a lot of caffeine lately, and that's kind of, it's interesting how your personality kind of changes a little bit, like based on what drugs you're doing. And like me on caffeine is very interesting. It's a very interesting thing. It's a very different person than drunk me. You know, drunk me loves music more than anything. Whereas caffeine, I mean, I just love music. Like, music's just my favorite thing in the world, like, no matter what drug I'm taking. but I think that, wow, that's a weird noise I just made. Like, when I'm, like, all hopped up on caffeine, I'm much more into reading. Whereas usually I just can't drink and read, you know? There was a time in my life I used to try to do that, but that's over. Jeffrey Skarsky says, "Hey Natalie, what's the main piece of advice you would give to someone interested in learning about lighting for film/video? Can't wait for your next video." Well, I mean, I don't know that much about it, except what I've kind of learned myself largely through trial and error and experimentation and just personal experience. So I would say like what I would suggest as far as learning is do what I did, which is experiment, try lots of different things out. But I would also say like experiment purposefully. Like one of my colleagues, I think it was H Bomber guy, was telling me when we were at VidCon about like lighting and gender, and how like men and women tend to be lit differently by people in the industry, where like, you know, you will light women from the front, like with soft boxes, because that makes you appear younger by sort of like illuminating all like wrinkles and making your face, your complexion seem more even. Whereas men will tend to be lit more dramatic lighting from the side, which actually emphasizes the texture of your skin. It makes you look rough. It makes you look, you know, rugged. You don't, you know, I don't like, to me, it's a nightmare to be lit with all this shadow on my face from a light on the side that's showing you every wrinkle, every pore. Like, no woman wants that. Well, maybe some do. I shouldn't. I'm such a, this is what I'm talking about, right? Because like people who criticize me for being like super gender conformist, like they're kind of right. Like I am like not to go full turf or anything, but I'm a stereotype of woman. It's true. It's like, so I'm like, no woman would want to be, I don't know, women probably want all kinds of ththings, but I am a stereotype of a person, so I don't know, I want to look younger and I want to look prettier. A tradmoid? I've never heard this word before. Someone just called me a tradmoid in the chat, and I think that's, yeah, I'm a tradmoid. A trad thought. So I love using colored lighting, and again, that's another thing that's just super fun to experiment with. And it took me a while. It's taken me a while to figure out how to really use it, and you know, purposefully and deliberately. I kind of got in love with it for a while, as I was just like, let's shine one light of every color on me and see what the crazy effect. I mean, in some of my earlier videos, like not early videos, but like middle period videos, like around like incels or trapscape videos like that, some of the videos have lighting that's just like crazy, you know. like it's just like straight up like rainbow fantasy lighting. And I kind of toned that down a little bit after I felt like so many people were copying me. Like, and I was like, it's not my distinctive thing anymore. My eyes are tired of looking at it. But I think I want to bring it back for particular reasons. I just want to use it very like purposively, you know what I mean? Not just because it's ContraPoints lighting, you know? Like I want, when there's a particular effect I'm trying to achieve, and not because I'm just doing it automatically. Because lately my go-to is really like 2 soft boxes on either side of my face, which give me that youthful, like glowy kind of look. And then I will often do a colored like hair light or light from the side, like, which is what I have now, right? Because basically, I mean, this is poorly lit because it's just live stream, but like basically my face is being lit mostly from the computer screen. And then I have that pink light over there, which is just giving the side of my face a little bit of like pink color and like a little bit of glow, and it's giving my hair a little pinkness, and just, it's just making everything look a little cuter, you know? Guys, I miss you. This music is making me nostalgic because I used to always play this on streams, like back before I was like famous, and I could just do like casual streams with randos. And those were, there was something kind of like, I had totally bought like the parasocial illusion back then, you know? Like I felt this like real sense of intimacy when I was doing those streams that it's kind of gone. It's kind of sad. Jesus Christ. I have had like 2 sips of this and I'm getting all like emotional. Like the slightest provocation with me, it's like I bring myself to the verge of tears. Okay, let's not do that. Kyle Fimano says, "Hi Nat, what are some of the things about..." We did Jeffrey. Yes, we did Jeffrey. What are some of the best things about transitioning as opposed to staying a dysmorphic, depressed, self-loathing man? What a question. My first 4 weeks post-realization, I made great progress, but since then I reverted and have been self-destructive and put on weight by eating horribly. Struggling for motivation again. Thanks, and keeping you. Well, that's a predicament. I mean, that's like a pattern that I recognize as having been something that I was doing in my mid-20s, where before this, this final transition attempt, there were kind of like 2 earlier periods in my life where I kind of like, I guess I was living a kind of like genderqueer existence, we would call it now. I didn't think of myself as genderqueer. I thought of myself as like a transvestite. But looking back, it was always more than that. Like I wasn't. I guess we don't like the word transvestite. Why? I guess because it implies either that you're doing it for paraphilic or for sort of like performative or comedic reasons, right? Whereas to say, "Oh, I'm genderqueer," like that's to suggest that your presentation has something to do with who you are. Or I don't know. I don't really understand. I'm not, as you can tell, I'm not very good with the language of all this. But like, why transition? Well, it just kind of, for me, sort of subtly improves very many areas of life when I feel more just like socially at home with who I am. Like for me, maybe the best part is just like, the best part of having transitioned is like, it's literally just like how much easier it is for me to socialize with people. Like, because I think that before I transitioned, I had like, I didn't like facing the world as a man. It felt like the wrong persona, if that makes sense. Like I just had a hard time like at parties and like, or even I think you can see on my YouTube channel, like I was awkward. I feel like transitioning has allowed me to grow into this new person that is more who I am, and that to me has been worth everything. So there's that. Obviously, I don't speak for everyone. Your mileage may vary. I've come to believe that different people have many different reasons for transitioning. I think that I think that any attempt to say, oh, like there's only one valid type of trans person, and here's why they transition, or say there's 2 types of trans person, and here's why they like, this is all so massively reductive and simplistic. Like I think this is a very complicated, like complex of psychological motivations and social motivations and pressures that leads people to transition, and trying to reduce it to any one thing, I think, is just not accurate, and just doesn't make sense of the diversity and the plurality exists. Okay, what am I rambling about? Well, good luck with whatever you decide. Person formerly known as Kyle. Ty says, "Hey Gorge, glad you're back at it. I'm in a bit of a pickle. I'm a bi guy coming out at 30, and I'm finding this whole experience terrifying. I feel de-sexed and de-gendered by straight people." Ooh, that's a good way of putting that. "And I feel like an ornament that makes straight men feel better about showing emotion. and many women use me as a ready-to-hand gay friend. Is there any queer theory for bisexuals, particularly bisexual men, that you could highlight for me? People or theorists, I really could use a point of reference because trying to find therapy for anything on bi men is hard. Wow, Ty, I do not have like any academic thing to point you to, but what you are describing seems like very much like the essence of what I've heard from a lot of bisexual men about the specific challenges of being a bisexual man. I think that that's actually an identity that's really underexplored and that doesn't have the kind of like social justice terminology around it that it deserves, because it's actually quite a difficult I've read a couple of good articles about this. Like it's actually a very what you're describing are very common problems for bisexual men that you know you find that women, straight women, right, suspect you of being gay or treat you that way, and might lose sexual interest in you, and then gay men either think that you're just gay and in denial, or they think that you're just straight and experimenting, and yeah, saying you find it feeling desexed and degendered. Yeah, that's, I mean, this is a thing, like being a bisexual woman is very different from being a bisexual man, and I think being a bisexual cis woman is in some ways easier than being a bisexual man of any kind. I'm actually, I mean, I shouldn't say that, because making these kinds of comparisons is like, it doesn't help anything, you know what I mean? But I do think that like being a bisexual man is in a lot of ways like less socially acceptable than being a bisexual woman. Though I have to say that I do feel some of what you're saying as a bisexual trans woman, where I do feel that being not straight desexes me or degenders me in a way similar to what you're describing, actually, where I kind of feel like in so many ways as a trans woman, you know, like I said about it being a very small box earlier, you try to you feel like you really have to be like the archetype of what a woman is, and part of that archetype is being straight. And so if you're not straight, well, that's a predicament, isn't it? And sometimes it makes me think I'm not a woman. So that's not the same as what you're going through. I understand, but it's I don't have any like theorists or anything off the top of my head to point you to, but I will say that you're not alone in this, and that a lot of other bisexual people go through something like what you're describing. So it's, you're not crazy. It's everything you're experiencing is real. Just Gallant Genius says, "Hi Natalie, hope you are doing good. I'm sorry if this is a sensitive question. If so, you can ignore it. Do you believe that since transitioning you are limited in a number of countries you can visit because many of them are not LGBT plus friendly?" Yes, I do. There's a lot of parts of the world I can't really go to. I can't really go to the Middle East, for example. And at least that's what I've been led to believe. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not that well traveled, so I sort of am not the most knowledgeable person about where is in fact safe. If I were to go to another country, I would do a lot of research first on whether like it's going to be safe to go there as a trans person. But yeah, I do suspect that it does limit my international travel options. Also, if you don't mind a bonus question, just pick one or none. No explanation needed. Avatar: The Last Airbender or Legend of Korra? I've actually seen neither. Which my siblings love both of them, but I've never seen them. I don't know. I really kind of like not as much of a, I'm not sort of as up on the anime as I guess I ought to be. I don't get like, my media consumption is kind of like it gets so limited to what like is kind of like I think relevant or maybe relevant to my work. But yeah, I know I should watch both. Liz Wells says, "Hi Natalie, no serious question this month. Just wanted to ask you, do anything to mark the day? Do you do anything to mark the day you started HRT? Today is my first year estrogen anniversary. My friend group is pretty split on whether marking the date is weird or not. My thoughts about that are that like marking like hormones as the anniversary can be like a weirdly overly medical way of thinking about your transition. Although in my case, that date pretty well coincides with my decision to go full time. And so it actually is significant, not just because I'm fetishizing hormones or anything, you know. So for me, that date is August 2nd. And I mean, I did an Instagram post about it. That's about as much celebrating as I do. But it does feel like a significant date to me because it does mark like the most drastic change in my life since I was born, you know. So yeah, to me it's been what, 2 years, a little over 2 years now, almost 2 years and 2 months. I don't think it's weird, no, in short. Taj Mahal says, I feel really horrible about the climate and the global rise of authoritarianism. What gives you hope for the future? Well, think about like the Black Plague, for example, right? That killed like, in some places it killed like more than half of the population of Europe. Well, that's not what some places means. In some parts of Europe it killed more than half the population. Or think about World War II, where just millions and millions and millions of people died. Or think about the Cuban Missile Crisis, where the world almost ended. Like, humanity is pretty tough, and obviously, like, we want to try to prevent these horrific things from happening, but like I don't know if it's much consolation to be like, well, the past was also horrific, but like you live for the good, right? You don't just give up because the bad has always been there, but there's always good things that happen too. So you try your best, and that's as good as you can do, and you find what's worth living, and then that's the best I think I can come up with. So good luck with that. Anna Marie says, hi Nat, which anniversary do you feel is most worth celebrating? The day you realized you were trans, the day you changed your name, or the day you legally changed your name? I personally buy cupcakes for all three. Well, I guess I kind of answered that a second ago. The anniversary I use is August 2nd because that is when I first started hormones, but that really kind of coincides with a lot of things. It just coincides with me like, I mean, I think it started like, excuse me. The reason I used August 2nd is that, to me, like, taking hormones for the first time was like a very deliberate, like, okay, here we go moment, you know what I mean? And I think it wasn't actually until like a week or two, like a few weeks later, I guess, that I like made like social media posts. Oh, by the way, I'm a woman, or however I put it. But and I didn't change my name for a little while. But I guess that's sort of, it's like as good a date as any. To me, it's not super important to be exactly right about the date. Okay, cupcakes, that's a cute way to celebrate it. BJ says, hey Nat, thanks for being utterly amazing and an inspiration to so many. You're welcome. Thank you. Hope there was enough support from those around you to get you through the Twitter bizarrosphere over the past couple weeks. What are your thoughts / feelings / reactions to the student climate marches and to Greta Thunberg's role in coalescing a face around the movement? Could this be the tipping point for taking meaningful global action on climate change? Well, I don't expect there to be any tipping point. I think that what's needed is just a chronic, endless, obsessive push for action on climate, because I think that otherwise laziness and selfishness and self-interest and profit and the status quo will keep winning out. So in order to keep that from happening, basically there just needs to be wave after wave after wave of pressure and accountability. And I'm happy that I'm very happy that young people are taking this seriously, because they're the ones who have the most to lose. And I think if they can, it's sad that that's what it takes, right? It's sad that people don't give enough of a shit about the future of their own children to do anything. but it's like, I'm glad that the 16-year-olds are taking over, because someone has to. And I think that this is promising. Yeah. Annapurna Vadaparty says, "Hi Natalie, I love you and tell everyone about your channel." Thank you. You've jokingly said that America needs a ContraPoints right now more than it needs a 30-year-old Gigi Gorgeous impersonator. If you could just pay someone else to do what you're doing, what would you do? I'd happily hand over some of the outreach I do to someone else if there was anyone who had the same vision and grit to get it done. How much of your motivation is a moral obligation versus genuinely wanting to spend your time doing what you do? I hope this didn't come across as accusing you of not loving what you do. I know you do. It's more like, is there something else you would love spending time on even more? Well, I'll put it this way. Being an activist is not something that I ever felt like a calling from birth or anything to be. You know what I mean? I really want to be an artist and an entertainer first. That's what I've always wanted. I've always wanted, since I was 14 or 15 years old, wanted to be up on stage, or a musician is what I thought at first. I want to make art, because to me, art is kind of what's pulled me through life. You know what I mean? That to me, that's the good. That's the best thing in life to me, is great. What to me is, whatever to me is great art. I don't mean that in the canonical sense of this is what it's in the museum. I just mean art that that just touches me, or that makes me laugh in the deeper kind of way than just superficial laughter. You know what I mean? That's great art to me, is that kind of laughing, or that kind of aesthetic chill. That's kind of what I live for. And so that's kind of what I want to make. Now, I don't know if the YouTube videos I make now are really the best way to go about that, but I kind of try to have my cake and eat it too, in the sense that I'm kind of doing some hybrid of activism and art and entertainment, right? I'm really trying to be entertaining. You know what I mean? I don't view the entertaining aspects of my videos as a little spice to help the information taste better. You know what I mean? I view that as a fundamental part of the project. And I guess, yeah, if I were to do something besides what I'm doing now, I might do something that's more I might do I would probably be producing some kind of art that has no redeeming social value. You know what I mean? I would be making, I don't know, John Waters style movies, or I would be, I don't know, making weird art installations or something. I don't know. But probably it would be something that's not so political, or so similar to activist kind of work. Hedonism Bot says, "Who were you in high school? Socially, extracurriculars, favorite music, etc. And knowing everything you know now, what advice would you give your high school self?" In high school, I was obsessed with music. I had a hard time in high school. I almost dropped out because I was really depressed. I hated it. And I kind of convinced this cool psychiatrist I was crazy by taking a Rorschach ink blot test. And as a result of their decision that I was crazy, they allowed me to take basically only music classes the last 2 years of high school. So I did that. I just played piano, I played cello in the school orchestra, I played guitar at home. And then when I graduated high school, I went to Berklee College of Music as like a piano student. But if I could tell myself, I was kind of a pretentious asshole looking back in high school. Like I thought I was so great because I was a musician or whatever. Like, and I just didn't understand. I just didn't have a lot of. I was very closed-minded. Like I didn't have a lot of sympathy for other people's struggles and like other people who were different than me. And like, if I could tell myself high school self one thing, it would be like, get over yourself. You're not that great. Like, you're not a genius. And you need to hear this. You're not a fucking genius. You're just a guy, And like, well, actually, it's even worse than that. You're just a girl. And like, and you need to stop this. You need to stop thinking that you're so great because you're just embarrassing yourself. And you are also, making worse art for thinking that you're a genius. Like you're not being honest with yourself. You're not seeing people, your own limitations. And I don't really particularly feel any desire to reconnect with my high school self. That person, as far as I'm concerned, is gone. And I don't particularly want to see him again. Okay. John Waterhouse says, what are the top 2 things the left is getting very wrong currently? Well, I'm gonna say number 1 is the canceling thing. Like the fact that like we're gonna like wage total war against a person for like wording an opinion wrongly or on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Because so a lot of people don't understand like what when we cancel culture, like, because I'm not just talking about criticism, right? I'm talking about like getting in touch with everyone you know and demanding that they publicly disown you. Like, that's not criticism, that is harassment. And a lot of that goes on under the heading of like just criticism, you know what I mean? And it's like we claim like, oh, we like, there's something kind of sort of insidiously duplicitous about a lot of like left-wing spaces, right? Where we say like, oh, we see these are safe spaces, like we want everyone to be taken care of, like we want like it's very important to respect other people's mental health, so there'll be no flashing lights, no loud noises, like very polite language. But like if someone says something slightly wrong, it's like, I will make sure you die alone and every one of your friends leave you, bitch. You know what I mean? It's like, what? Like the transition from this extreme kind of sensitivity to just like, you're unpersoned is just horrifying to me. So that's number 1 problem. Number 2, I would say like, it's kind of related to the same problem. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we need to be able to. I hate the part of leftist discourse where like, if a person has one bad opinion, we have to dismiss all their opinions. You know what I mean? Like, if a person says something like transphobic, we can't even listen to what they have to say about race. You know what I mean? Well, that doesn't leave a whole lot of people because everyone's wrong about something. And it makes it hard to like think. You know what I mean? It makes it hard to think clearly about things. Because there's this, it's a kind of like purity thinking, right? Like only like good thoughts are allowed, only good people, and it's so easy to become categorized as a bad person and just be totally dismissed. And so there's sort of no freedom, there's no freedom to be wrong. And it's bad because I think progress and like intellectual development and emotional development, like, these are things that don't happen unless you make some mistakes. And so there just needs to be more room to make mistakes and to like try things out. And like we can have a conversation about like what the best ways are to do that, because a lot of times when people, there is a reason why why a lot of people are resistant to the idea of cancel culture, because it's, so often it's invoked by like like shitty 50-year-old stand-up comedians who are not really, what I mean, like who are not really participating in any kind of thinking about these topics, but just don't like that people are mad at them. But I think there is a real problem there too, I think that conservatives are always going to exploit that real problem and try to make it seem like that's, what's wrong with the left, and that's why the left is terrible, blah blah blah. But there's a real problem too. Alicia Crawford is not. I'm gonna throw you a total softball this month. Where do you think you are on the McDonald's? McDonald's. We have food at home. 1 black coffee, alignment chart, and why? Okay. Where am I? So the alignment chart is like you're driving your kids and they say McDonald's. Is your response to your kids, you join in McDonald's is your response, we have food at home? Or do you go to the drive-through, get 1 black coffee, and then drive away? I think I'm McDonald's, but I might be biased by the fact that I like McDonald's. Let me look at your image post. I do not know what's going on there. What is this? A glue gun goggle. Oh, these are your goggles you're making. Oh, love that. You have to post next time. Post the ones that post them when you make them. Okay, Kelly Zaytos says, why hola, my literal favorite person. Your existence is like perpetually stepping into a warm bath because, you kind of made the internet a much nicer place for us people of the alphabet. And you're just this immensely grounding force. Thanks, Kelly. Biggest production yet? Yes. You don't let anything slow you down. If anything, you come back stronger. That's the hope. I really want to know, what are you like when you're alone? Do you need silence or noise? Do you lose your sense of self when you're around others too much? Do you think you could travel alone for an extended period of time? Do you feel truly understood by someone in your life? Well, as understood as we can be, right? Infinitely proud to be able to contribute to your work and be able to interact with you. Thanks for caring so sincerely about your fans. It's just, thank you, Kelly. Well, when I'm alone, it sort of depends what I'm doing, because I listen to music a lot when I'm alone. Like after the stream is over, it's gonna be like midnight, and I'm gonna go in the other room and I'm gonna finish styling some wigs. I might put up some wallpaper, and I will always listen to music or listen to podcasts or things when I do that. Usually music and not podcasts, to be honest, although I have been listening to podcasts a little more recently. But when I'm writing, I always listen to like rain noises. No, I guess I don't know if I lose my sense of self too much when I'm around others, but I do like to have like periodic alone time. Do I feel truly understood by someone in your life? Yeah, there's one person that I talk to a lot and that I think knows about me more about me than anyone else. It's a very rich, complicated relationship. I think that's my answer. Okay, Cream Erica. What a name. Love that. Okay, heyo, I'm a 30 male to female Maryland that came out 10 years ago. Oh, MD. Maybe that's MD, not Maryland. Sorry, my Maryland bias. Not unclockable. I do okay usually, but I started getting misgendered at work in front of patients like crazy by the nurses on the L&D floor after I got a shaving cut on the neck. How to talk to my boss / residency director about it after I realized it was really messing with me. And despite his right-wing leanings, he urged me to go file a complaint with HR for sexual harassment. I am worried about the blowback and having to out myself more at work because stealth is life. So tell me, what would Natalie do? Well, it's a little hard for me to say what I would do because I don't since I've been out, like I've never really had a conventional job. Like my workplace is YouTube, and yeah, I constantly get abused and misgendered, and there's no HR to complain to. So what I would probably do is, especially if you're stealth, like if I was stealth, I would cling to the stealth above anything. I would get more laser on my face and neck or electrolysis and try to sweep the whole thing under the rug and try to move on, but I'm not saying that's what you have to do. But that is what I would do because I'm just my whole trans experience is colored by being in a space where there's nothing you can do to stop transphobic harassment except, there's nothing you can do, so you just have to kind of ignore it and move on. But that's because there's no HR department where I am. So if you have that option, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Mitch Silverman says, "Hi Natalie, you brilliant woman, you. Thank you. I was only recently introduced to you. I watched Our Trap's Gay first. It blew me away. And here I am already, an outright accomplice." Rubs hands together. Thank you. I came out about living with bipolar disorder and being autistic a few years ago to educate others, make common cause with my comrades, and to live as who I am. So I appreciate your tremendous effort living so much of your life, blemishes and all, as an out trans woman. In your autogynephilia video, you said you were able to talk about your own sexual feelings because of your lack of self-esteem. I have chronic bipolar depression, and I don't pick up social cues that well, so I really identify with that. What helps you deal with your lack of self-esteem? What helps you put yourself out there anyway? The monolinguist Spalding Gray, one of my favorite performers, once said, "It's very hard for me not to tell everybody everything." As an autistic person with porous social boundaries, I loved him for his radical openness, and I cherish and salute you. What helps you deal with lack of self-esteem? What helps you put yourself out there anyway? Humor. That's the main thing, honestly. Like, is that I find that my kind of self-loathing, if I can make it funny, I make it survivable, and so that's why the self-deprecating jokes are super, super important to me, because it enables me to function, basically. Thank you, Mitch. Dahlia Heyman says, "Hey Natalie, longtime subscriber, first time asker. Your grace, poise, and ability to disseminate thank you. Hey, how are you? Ability to disseminate complex and nuanced ideas in ways that resonate consistently with an ever-broadening audience is amazing and needs to be acknowledged." Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, over time, your videos have become more and more theatrical, and your production has gotten more complex. Was this something that you had strived for from the beginning, or was it something that evolved naturally over time? Thanks. Well, yeah, I'm kind of a maximalist by temperament, and I always wanted to just be as big and and grandiose and just fabulous as possible. And as I've gotten better funded, thanks to you guys, like what the limit on that is just keeps expanding and expanding. And the video I'm working on now, it definitely represents like another stepping up of the pageantry, which like this is what I live for. Like I love it. So that's honestly what makes me, like, one of the things that makes me happiest working on these videos is like the sheer pageantry of it all. Like oops, I just turned my monitor off. It'll be on in a second. I just love putting on a show, and just like the visual spectacle of it all and the music and all of that. Like is this monitor seriously that unplugged? God damn it. Okay, there we go. It's back on. Yeah, it was always something I kind of wanted to strive for, and my ability to achieve it has just increased, if that makes sense. Like, I have always made things as big and elaborate as I could possibly make them. Why is the music dead? Okay, I have to restart iTunes. I'm using iTunes. What year is this? Okay. Alex Manzoni says, "Hello, Natalie. Have you ever been put in the friend zone? The catching feelings for a friend but not being liked back variety. Or have you ever put somebody else in the friend zone?" Yes, both, many times. um, I don't like the word friend zone because it's, to me, the word friend zone is associated with like whiny men who think that they're entitled to have women romantically interested in them because they were nice. Uh, but of course, it does happen that sometimes, you fall for a friend and the friend doesn't fall for you, and that is shitty. Very painful situation because you don't want to lose your friendship either, right? Oh, it's this one. You don't get a thank you, babe. Says, what are some of the most frivolous or fluffy topics you've considered making videos about? Is there any topic you really want to explore but shied away from because it isn't weighty enough? Yeah, probably. I guess. In fact, the video I'm working on now is kind of one of those topics, except that I found a way to make it weighty. And so I would say it's actually, what seems like maybe a frivolous topic, I think I've managed to turn into, in a sense, one of my weightiest videos. Uh, so I think the answer is like, if a fifth topic is like that important to me, then it will become weighty just by the nature of its being important to me, you know? Sam Hughes says, "Hi Natalie, in one of your early videos on academia, you talked about how much of academia is a bunch of upper middle class white people discovering higher order truths about chmaths. Given this critique, I'm curious what your vision is for what role academia ideally ought to take in society and what changes you would make to academia to make it better if you had the power to do so." I don't know, because I've been out of academia so long that I don't really think about it. You know what I mean? Like, I've kind of moved on with my life. I've found another way to do what I wanted to do that doesn't involve academia. So I don't know. I don't have any motivation to improve academia because I don't have anything to do with it. But I would say that, like, I have a couple of suggestions. Like, for example, um, I think that in the humanities, less emphasis on research, more emphasis on teaching. Because, like, I'm super fucking sorry, but most of the research that gets done in the humanities isn't that valuable. Like writing the 200th book about Emily Dickinson or Immanuel Kant, like, let's be honest, more than 200. It's just like most of those books are not that important. I'm so sorry. But teaching children about Emily Dickinson and teaching like 20-year-olds about, philosophy or about literature, like that's actually really valuable. And if we spent more time thinking about that and like what we're trying to like do with students, like what we're trying to give students, and spending less time worrying about what paragraph 357 of the phenomenology of spirit really means, like, this to me seems like a better use of academic minds. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I quit. um, Joshua says, "Hi Natalie, given how successful Ben Shapiro got making pretty weak arguments that still sound like epic wins, trademarked to a majority of people, have you ever been tempted to include similar, kind of dumb when you think about it, but feels like a total own argument in any of your content?" I'm trying to think of if there's anything that's like coming to the top of my head that's like just like literally straight up like me making a bad argument because it sounds good. Um, I'm sure I've done it at some point. I don't know, because I do value like rhetorical skill, right? Above, sometimes above, like, sometimes like if I think an argument is more convincing, I'll use it instead of one that's like technically logically very good but like not really intelligible to most people. I don't know. I think I usually will say whatever I think is the best argument. I try to speak, but I speak a lot of times. I feel like a lot of my videos are about kind of my feelings about things. Like, I'm giving you a perspective more so than I'm giving you like arguments. I guess I don't know. I used to do videos that were a little more argument heavy, like the pronouns videos, like very argumentative because it's about Ben Shapiro, or Um, I don't know what other videos have I done recently. But most of the videos that I've done in 2019, like whether you're talking about like are traps gay or the darkness or gender critical beauty men, transgenders, like all these videos, I'm kind of like I'm showing you perspectives, I'm showing you feelings, I'm showing you thoughts more than I am like trying to argue like in a logical way about a particular topic, um, because that to me is just as valuable, is especially when it comes to topics where other people's unknown experiences are very relevant. Um, that to me is just what it was. That's kind of more the focus than it is like trying to make like you know Ben Shapiro wrecked destroyed type arguments. I don't really do that these days, you know. Um, Laura K says, "What is one topic that you wanted to do a video on but don't feel prepared to tackle, and why?" For example, because it's too different from previous videos, potentially frivolous or fluffy, as another patron mentioned, because it's too arcane, difficult to translate to us plebs, because it's too inflammatory, polarizing, etc. Um, well, I'm kind of like there's kind of two videos that I sort of have in my mind that I sort of like don't really feel up to doing for kind of all of the above of those reasons, that both that I think, well, not because it's too different from previous videos, these two are like relevant, but because they are uh, a little bit arcane, and because they're inflammatory and polarizing. So one of them would be a video called like the binary, and it's kind of about like what about like the gender binary and binary versus non-binary identities, and all these kinds of complex questions, and it would just be sort of my attempt to make sense of it all, and also to state all these questions I feel like I can't answer, because I do have a lot of unanswered questions about things like that. The other one that I don't think I'll ever do would be, in a way, kind of a follow-up to the autogynephilia video, as if that 49-minute monstrosity needs a follow-up, but I kind of feel like that video in particular is kind of weak, despite its length. I don't think it really deals with the subject matter, and and I think that the video I have in mind would be about a lot of the difficult questions about why trans women transition, and how, in my opinion, like there is anthropological truth to Blanchardism. Like clearly he's observing facts that like things that are real trends, right? Like we talked about this on stream before, right? Like if you read Magnus Hirschfeld's work from the 30s, called the book called Transvestites, uh, it comes to a lot of the same conclusions as Blanchard, and those things like have troubled me throughout my transition, and in some ways have troubled me more as I've met more and more trans women, and feel that, you know, there really are these kinds of two stark clusters of trans women with very different backstories. And I would like to kind of make a kind of like if I were to ever make a theory about trans women, I think what I would do is a kind of like post Blanchardism, right? That like starts with a lot of those observations, and then it tries to come up with a more nuanced way of talking about them than what Blanchard offers. Because I think a reason, like, you know, that my autogynephilia video has 1 million views, and that's unusual. It's the only video of mine that's that old that has that many views. Why does that video have so many views? A lot of people are googling this topic, and if you look at like the more sinister, the more like sinister parts of trans internet, it's kind of an obsessive topic, and I think that part of the reason for that is that a lot of mainstream trans discourse is very, very like euphemistic about things, right? Like there's a heavily ideologically loaded concept of trans women, and you're supposed to believe all these things. Like, you're supposed to say, oh, I was always a woman, and that I was a woman born in a man's body. And like, the fact of the matter is that this just does not line up with a very large number of people's experiences. And, you know, then you have that on one side, and then the other side, you have Ray Blanchard, who, you know, talks about how there's these like two very different groups of trans women, right? There's this group of trans women who are, before they transition, they live as feminine gay men, and they oftentimes, you know, in this type of trans women, like, they're kind of the distinctive formative experience of their life, of their early life, is feminine. Like, the fundamental problem of their life is femininity, and often that it's, you know, they're bullied for it, and it's this like this issue throughout their childhood, adolescence, and early adulthood. On the other hand, you have a whole separate group of trans women who basically seem to pass as normal men, and until, you know, they come out as trans and shock everyone. And like, it's just, these are two very different experiences that, you know, that like, this topic is so, it's like such a deeply taboo topic, you know, that I think my video, my problem is I have with my autogynephilia video is that I think that in a way I was pushing too hard against some of Blanchard's things, right? Because it's a very like, it's a very threatening theory to trans women, you know what I mean? Because what Blanchard is saying is that you are men, right? So I'm not saying that, what I mean is that I want to try to make sense of Blanchard's observations without reaching his conclusion that, oh, these are just either male homosexuals or male fetishists, because I don't believe that. I'm not a Blanchardist, to be clear, in case I did not make that clear. But I do think that, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like, people sometimes think that, like, you know, people sometimes try to call me out for like not liking the like feminine essence theory of trans women, like this men trapped in women's bodies stuff. But like, I've met hundreds of trans women at this point, and it's pretty hard not to notice that there's this like two-type typology is based on something that's real, right? I'm not saying that the typology is true, that the typology is theoretically good. I'm just saying that it's based on something that is quite clearly real. And so far as I'm aware, there's simply no way of talking about that except Blanchardism. And like, that's not super fucking great, is it? Because it means that either we live in this like, well, I'm rambling about this a long time, but I kind of keep this inside most of the time. So here it is. Like, even though I hate the way a lot of people summarize my video, like they'll just summarize it as, oh, I said, oh, there's no such thing as autogynephilia. No one has that. Those like, that's clearly not true. Like clearly there are men who have this. I think it's actually quite common for men to, like, have you ever been a straight guy who likes, I don't know, like taking pictures of his butt in women's yoga pants and like sending them to his friends or something? Just, you know what I mean? Like it's a feeling. I don't think that this is what causes people to transition, but I think it's a dimension of you know, a lot of people's sexuality that I don't particularly see the point in denying. But nor do I think that. Nor do I think that, you know, Blanchardism is a good theory. I think that that is grossly simplistic and reductionistic. But so that's probably the big video I would like to do, but never will. That's basically, I've just given you a synopsis of the video. That's never going to happen. Maggie's daddy says, Natalie, you gave dating advice to someone in a way back AMA. I took it. We bonded over our mutual love for you, and now we're married. Oh my God. What? Congratulations. Do you / would you officiate? Oh my god, that's crazy. Are you are you in Maryland by any chance? If so, send me a message on Patreon. Otherwise, unfortunately probably can't do it, but I am super. I don't know what to say, Maggie's daddy. I'm super happy for you guys, and that's completely wild to me. That's like that's gonna make my night. I cannot believe that. Wow, infinite love to you guys. That's I have no words. Okay, Dana Ferguson says, I'm a trans woman. People tend to consider me male. People who deal with trans people tend to consider me female and think I'm crazy for saying that I'm constantly called sir in the real world. Ooh. Is there some easy way to bridge this gap? For example, why is my therapist, surgeon, LGBT friend picking up on what my regular cis friends are? I'm so confused on this one. Yeah. So this is a phenomenon I think is pretty common. It's another thing that drives me crazy about trans spaces, where like trans people tend to like form these like bubble spaces where we could. I mean, it's important. Like there's a reason why we're charged to these spaces, right? Trans people are not often validated in the wider world. Will kind of congregate in these like safe spaces, but I mean, I've never been in really spent any significant time in trans safe spaces, which has, I think, affected in a lot of ways my thinking of things. Is that I'm used to being around cis people all the time. I'm used to having to navigate their world and their perception and their values, and I'm not used to the safe spaces. But one problem I see people having with these safe spaces is that like what you could call like hug boxing gets so total. It becomes like such a total thing that like people aren't even being honest with you, and like people are like, what, how could you possibly be misgendered, right? And then you go out into the world and people are calling you sir all day, and it's like there's two different ways of seeing that are not matching up, and what's being told to you in this trans safe space is not translating. It's not translating it into the cis world, right? So that said, I'm not just it may be more complicated than, oh, trans people are just hug boxing you to make you feel good, because it might be more complicated than that. You say you're cis friends. Well, if your cis friends knew you before you transitioned, it could also be the case that people who know you before you transitioned, like, have a very hard time adapting. I mean, I found this to be the case. Like, I don't get misgendered anymore in public, basically. Like, it hasn't happened in like a year at this point, like it's been a year since I've gotten anyone call me sir. Like, I get miss and ma'am only. Like, it's just not a problem for me. But my parents will still fuck it up sometimes because I was their son for a couple decades at least. And so I think if strangers are calling you sir all day but you identify as female, then that's a passing issue, right? And there's things you can do about that. There's things you can work on with that. But it helps. What you need to find is like trans people who are like interested in passing and who can help you and give you honest feedback, but who also are not bullies and care about you and will do this. Will help you work on this in a compassionate way, because unfortunately, a lot of trans people who care about passing a lot also tend to be kind of mean, and that's because they are often trans people who have my kind of experience, where they're just living with cis people all the time. They've been forced their whole lives to deal with cis people's perceptions, and they've really internalized cis people's way of looking at trans people. So it's a delicate balance. It's not an easy thing to deal with, but I would say like there's two main takeaways. One, trans safe spaces are giving you kind of a distorted view of the world. 2, cis people who knew you before you transitioned are giving you a distorted view of yourself as well. And 3, what strangers think about you on the street, for example, does not define who you are. 4, if you are interested in bridging your identity and the way trans people treat you with the way you get treated in the world more generally, it's helpful to find trans people who are not don't spend all their time in safe spaces, who are interested in passing, who know the kind of skills and things that are involved with that, and are willing to help you in a compassionate way. 5, don't bother hanging out with people who are just going to bully you. That doesn't help. Doesn't you do any good. I wish you the best of luck. Oh my gosh, I'm going to try to finish this before peeing again, but I really have to. Is this spironolactone plus the coffee plus the booty? It's like a medical condition. Okay. Emerson says, can anyone tell me how to watch the stream? I'm not at all familiar with where to go. Okay, someone help Emerson out. I would guess that maybe has happened since that was posted 4 hours ago. Okay. Gamortian says, hi, Natalie. Very happy for your continued existence. Please keep doing that. I'll do my best. I just wanted to say that the way you are treated on Twitter is horrible, and as a non-binary person, it frustrates me to see people give such uncharitable interpretations of you expressing reasonable frustration. Sometimes it seems to me like there is an occasional trend of non-binary people being kind of ignorant or dismissive of binary trans people's issues. I wish the LGBT community at large, or at least on Twitter, didn't always feel like it was trying to tear each other down. If you have any thoughts on that you want to share, I'd be curious to hear it, but if not, that's understandable. Anyways, okay, I'll answer that question first. So I think that, I mean, I don't totally disagree with what you're saying. I think that trans people in general do not get a lot of empathy from society, and so we find ourselves in this situation where we're kind of fighting each other for this whatever scraps of it that there are, and a lot of trans people become so focused on their own personal experience, they become kind of close-minded. So we're all pretty familiar, I think, right, with the ways that binary trans people can be totally dismissive of non-binary people, or can just erase non-binary people, or just invalidate them. Like, this is we have a word for this, true scum, right? Like, this is a pretty well-known phenomenon. I think that there is a lesser known phenomenon that is also real, which you're pointing out, which is that there are some non-binary people who are kind of dismissive of binary trans people, in the sense that that they tend to say they either think that their increased marginalization as being non-binary makes their experiences take precedence over the supposedly more less oppressed binary trans people. I think it's actually more complicated than that. I think that binary trans people who pass very well do in fact have a lot of privilege other trans people don't. But I think that just considering all binary trans people in that framework is not very accurate. So I think that it's complicated. I also think that, my perception of this whole incident was not really like, oh, a bunch of non-binary people got mad at me. Like, I didn't really perceive it as like me versus non-binary people. I experienced it as like a part of trans Twitter that has basically won in my head for 2 years, and which is at least as many binary as non-binary trans people basically just jumped the fuck on this and just wrote it as far as they could. And then other people were expressing reasonable concerns as well. But when you're just being attacked and attacked and attacked, it becomes impossible to think through the reasonable criticisms when you're also having people trying to ruin your career, so it's like, it's just a bad starting point for trying to have discourse. Your second question, have I read postmodernist fiction by writers like DeLillo or Thomas Pynchon? If so, what do you think of that? I read The Crying of Lot 49, is that the name of the book, by Thomas Pynchon, like when I was in my mid-20s, and like on a kick of reading that sort of thing. I remember liking it at the time. I don't think I would have the patience for it now, though. Okay. We've got a couple new comments, it looks like. Thera mentioned in her AMA that she'd liked you to do a video on anti-vaxxers. Yeah, she was always trying to convince me to do that. Are you considering this as a future topic? If not, why not? Um, I may be considering it. I know another prominent left-wing YouTuber who's also been talking about it, so I might see what that person does first um, before doing it. Uh, it's not necessarily a topic that I'm like super like curious or passionate about, but like I could probably get into it, you know. It'll be a matter of me having like an artistic angle on it, you know what I mean? Not just making an informational video like debunking anti-vaxxers, right? Like if I were to make such a video, it would likely be about the psychology of anti-vaxxers, right? Like the psychology of organicism and of purity ethics and of the intense pressures that are placed on mothers to always have to do the perfect right thing for their kids and to not do anything harmful, to minimize harm, right? And I think how that, in my view, is kind of what leads um, to anti-vaxxers is this like, I think it's related to the phenomenon of people telling mothers like, oh, are you breastfeeding? Oh, are you feeding the only organic baby food? Oh, otherwise you're a bad mother and you're killing your child, right? Like I think a lot of moms these days face like this kind of bullshit all the time, and I think that kind of high anxiety existence like leads to this fear that and this kind of like, you know, misguided like harm minimizing logic that produces anti-vaxxerism. uh that's actually now that I say it, that seems like a pretty good idea for a video. I hadn't thought I didn't thought I was gonna do it, but you just made me say it out loud and I'm like, yeah, I could do a video like that. Okay. Gamzee Joestar says, hey Natalie, I'm sure you've gotten this question a bunch in the past, but how would you recommend coming out / asking people to use different pronouns in the workplace, especially family, if you're worried about them having a bad reaction? Well, uh, it's hard. Again, it's hard for me to talk about workplace stuff because my workplace, for the entire, my whole out trans life, my workplace has been YouTube. And but which has its own challenges and its own benefits. As far as family, you're likely going to need to be prepared for people to take time and for you have to go over this several times and for it to be dismissed at first, which is frustrating. But I think that, you know, talking to people individually at first might help. I don't know. God, I mean, I've only had to do this once, and I don't think I went about it in necessarily the best way, as I sort of alluded to earlier in this stream. So I'm not sure I really have the best advice for that, except I sometimes say like, write down your thoughts first, and maybe even consider like reading to the people close to you or sending them a written note to people close to you, because you may have an easier time getting your thoughts out and not be interrupted by things that are just going to make you angry before you're able to really express your thoughts. You know what I mean? That's it. I'm okay. I'm pleased with that advice. I think I agree with that. I agree with that. Uh, Nathaniel says, hey Nat, I wanted to thank you for everything you've done to open my eyes to the broader social world. I also wanted to ask you about some advice, as recently out of the closet bi man, about expressing this info to my childhood best friend. How would you suggest I approach this topic with him? He was my first sexual experience, and I may not take it well. Okay, so I'm taking I'm assuming that what you're describing here is that you're coming out as bisexual to your childhood best friend, um, who thinks of you as a gay man. Is that right? Um, I guess I think that. I mean, what is the reaction you're worried about here? Because if this is someone you've had a sexual experience with, I'm assuming that unless this um, sexual experience between the two of you has always been coded as, oh, we're straight men and we're just messing around. Okay, so if it's that, then you're worried that he's going to think that, you know, he's going to have to recategorize this experience as gay, which might trigger a whole masculinity issue. Yeah, that is... I can see that he would be worried about that. I don't know. Like, I think that just make it clear that this is something that means something to you. Make it like, you know, I would talk about it first without bringing up that experience, and I think if he's a good friend, then he'll hear you out, and if he can't handle it, then, like, you know, this might not be someone who's good for you to be around. Maybe that sounds too harsh, but that's kind of how I feel. You know, I'm assuming that that's the situation, because if the problem is that he thinks of you as a gay man, then it's gonna be fine. Okay. Army of Me. Are you excited for Drag Race UK? I haven't seen any of it. I haven't even seen the previews. I think it's gonna be like shockingly English to me, but yeah, I'm excited to watch it and see how it's. I'm excited to see how it's different, actually, because I don't know that much about drag in the UK and like how it's different. So, I'm very curious. Okay. Osnira says, "Hi, love. So, social liberalism. Why is it so unfashionable today? The idea of the government taming the excesses and failures of markets, plus Enlightenment classical liberalism, including attacking market failures like environmental apocalypse. So since we won't be getting rid of capitalism anytime soon, I sometimes think it's like with communism and socialism, it's never really existed. So we criticize its incarnations, not its ideal. In which case, sure, but critics on the left juxtapose it against ideologies further to the left, which have not existed in reality either. I don't consider the right-wing nihilism come fascism to be worth thinking about except in a what-the-fuck way. But who cares what us queer economists think, lol, really? Lol? Sad. Well, yeah, why is liberalism so unfashionable? Well, it's true that that's become like kind of the new like universal punching bag, right, of everyone from like the you know, Dave Rubin to most of, you know, the YouTube left. Well, I think it's because we just live in a very polarized extreme time, which is in part to do with the fact that, you know, the people are, broadly speaking, pretty dissatisfied, is the sense I get, right? And people think of liberalism as the status quo, whether on the right or the left. And so, basically, you know, I think we're at a cultural moment when people want some kind of drastic change. And liberalism, I think, in most people's minds, is just doing more of the same thing. So I think that's, you know, that's what it is. I think it's unfashionable because it's viewed to be the status quo. That's my read on it anyway. Last question. This is Rick Carter. Ray, you're usually the first. This time you're the last. A lot of AMABs just have less above the eye flesh space to do fun eyeshadow stuff than AFAB. I know what you mean. Yeah. Less distance, you know, eyebrow and eyeshadow is one of the things that FFS targets. Any tips, or can you recommend any good makeup tutorial artists on YouTube? Much love. Don't let the bastards get you down. Well, you could always become Jeffree Star and shave your eyebrows off. I mean, that's what drag queens do, right? Or if you don't want to do that, what I do is, well, I actually do have, like, I have like I have enough space to do eyeshadow on, but it's not as much as like women who have like a very round faces tend to have these like this big space between their eyelid and their eyebrows, which is, you could just make all this eyeshadow on. What I do, and what I think that seems to work on my face, is I do the crease, right? And I keep the makeup from the crease. Don't touch the eyebrow, but just get almost up to it. And I draw it out wider this way. It kind of depends on your face. But on my face, I find that a very long, thin, almost like kind of wing of eyeshadow looks good on me. And so I sort of do any kind of like drama or flourish that I do with the eyeshadow is going to be done by like drawing it up the side of my face in a way that's kind of, because that way I have very like prominent cheekbones, right? Like I don't contour because this shadow is there already. And so the way I think of it on my face is there's these three lines, right? There's the eyebrow, which points out, then there's the eyeshadow, which goes that side way, and then it's all kind of, that's parallel to the cheekbone. So that kind of draws my whole face kind of up and back, which is like a very, I don't know, I find it to be like, I think I'm being super sleek and glamorous. It's a look that I like for myself. I guess on different kinds of faces, different kinds of looks would work. But it's true that if you have a smaller distance between your eyebrow and your eye, and you're not a drag queen, you don't want to glue your eyebrows down, then yeah, it's harder to do the like to have your like super dramatic like cut crease kind of eyeshadow looks show up. So even just like a single solid color, and then I really like doing lighter colors in the you know, inner eye area. Do some shimmer on the eyelid, so that when you close your eyes, there's a little moment, and then another thing you can do if you want to increase drama in eyes is go under the eye with the eyeshadow. Just make sure it's well blended, and then just have the under eye extend up, and have like the eyeshadow that's beneath your eye kind of that's kind of where the line begins, that's going to draw your wing. So I don't know, those are some thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for I'm at the point of the stream where I'm touching my hair. It's time to go. Thank you guys so much for your questions. Thank you for watching. Thank you for still supporting me this month despite all this stuff that's been going on. And I'm sorry for I know it's been a while since the last video comes out, but I promise it's gonna be worth it when this one comes out, because it's kind of a whole new level of production. So I hope you guys like it. And my voice is done talking, so I'm gonna go drink some water and style some wigs. Love you guys a lot. Have a great night. Talk to you next month.